Welcome to part 8 of Horror Fabricate Dark Myths to Frighten Evil Gods. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Now let's move on to
Chapter 116, Part 1. Yuan had to sigh. The power of the eternal brain buff. He has never felt so good at any moment. I just feel that all the threads that were originally looming were all connected in his mind forcibly. What is certain now is that on the treacherous train, the imprints of the portraits of these super VIPs are not simple portraits, and there are more or less leftovers in them. It's as if the King of Sin deliberately left a method for picking the silk thread of faith, the figure of the papermaker and the bloody handprint left behind some kind of secret text. The other super VIPs have no reason not to keep their own things. It's just that the backhands in these portraits all need to be attracted in a special way. Yuan muttered to himself, then suddenly flipped his palm. A very old, yellowed old photo suddenly appeared in my hand. This is something I got from the bumper car project in Haicheng Amusement Park. In the photo, there is an extremely bright and beautiful Cheongsam girl. He sat in the train and looked out the window quietly, seemingly harmless to humans and animals. Although Yuan didn't know the identity of this Cheongsam girl. But what he can be sure of is, this Cheongsam girl is definitely not an ordinary person. Because this Cheongsam girl is also one of the super VIP guests of the trick train. Super VIP is not something that cats and dogs can be. He must be the same kind of existence as the paper maker and the king of tricks, and he is the kind of true supreme terror. With a flick of his wrist, Yuan turned the photo over. On the back, there is a line of distorted text written. This should be left by the photographer at that time. Photographed at Chongqing Station. If anyone is lucky enough to meet this beautiful lady in the future, please send my regards to her. She is very gentle and kind, and will help you solve your troubles. Yuan's eyes quickly passed over these words. Countless thoughts flowed through the eternal brain, and quickly connected together to form a complete vein. The ticket of the treacherous train, and this old photo, appeared in the bumper car project at the same time. It's not so much a coincidence. I think it's a special arrangement by someone with a heart. The text on the back of the photo should not be written randomly. It must have some kind of deep meaning. Perhaps, this old photo is an important prop to attract the supporters of the portrait of the girl in Cheongsam. With this in mind, Yuan took a step forward without hesitation, came in front of the portrait of the Cheongsam girl. He coughed lightly, said in a deep voice, "The beautiful lady. I came here with an old photo and say hello to you on behalf of the enemy. I'm in a little trouble right now. Can you help me?" The voice did not fall. This old photo, which cannot be destroyed no matter what means Yuan uses, has already burned up in a strange way. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a mass of ashes. A cold wind blows. The paper dust was blown up immediately and landed on the portrait. Next moment, the portrait flickered strangely, blooming a red light like blood, and in the red light, there is a slender figure standing tall. Not someone else. It was the extremely mysterious Cheongsam girl. This phantom is more moving than the photo. The face is pale and soft. The figure is slim and graceful. The eyes are flowing, and the waves are infinite. There is endless meaning between every frown and smile. It was as if all the charms in the whole world were concentrated on one woman. Compared with the plain-clothed woman before, they have completely different temperaments. And the Cheongsam on his body and the high-heeled shoes on his feet were all blood like scarlet, permeated with an indescribable aura. This also means that he is definitely not a soft-hearted little sheep, but a real queen. And after this phantom appeared, in the gray in the distance, those horrible fallen creatures suddenly stopped there. Like a statue. It was as if it was forcibly suppressed by some invisible force. They can't take a step forward, and naturally they can't pose any threat to Yuan, eh? The woman in the Cheongsam opened her mouth softly and murmured in a low voice. The voice is sweet and charming, and there is a temptation to sink people. Then, he lowered his head, with a charming smile on his face, and took a deep look at Yuan. "Since you took out that photo, you want to ask me for help? Then I have no reason not to help. Tell me, what do you want me to do?" Hearing this, Yuan couldn't help but feel happy. Very good. He's trying right. As he judged before, old photos are the key to trigger changes in the portraits of women in Cheongsam. Now, consuming the old photos is equivalent to attracting an extremely powerful and terrifying foreign aid for him. This is a great horror that can stand side by side with the terrifying existences of the paper maker the king of tricks, and the woman in plain clothes. He considered his words briefly. Then he coughed lightly and spoke without hesitation. This beautiful lady, my request is simple. I hope that I can stay here as long as possible without being disturbed by any fallen creatures. The Cheongsam girl chuckled. She was extremely charming and youthful. Without any hesitation, he just nodded slightly. It turned out to be such a simple request. No problem, I will satisfy you. After all, it raised its hand leisurely. The fingers are slender, and the nails at the end are painted with extremely delicate red nail polish. He just goes from left to right. Draw a circle extremely lightly. Then all the fallen creatures around froze. Whether it's the new group, or the 20 statues suppressed by Gu Yuan with the 6 layers of dark mythological ghosts, or the few imprisoned in the world of ancient books and the gray fog of the paper maker, there is an extremely thin red thread all over their bodies. The whole body was cut off in an instant. The breath of life disappeared completely in an instant, and there was no trace left, and the death was crisp and simple. Gu Yuan saw it in his eyes. I couldn't help but feel a shock in my heart. This method is weird and unpredictable, and it is also a bit too terrifying. He didn't even see what kind of power the Cheongsam girl was using. There is really no such thing as a simple thing for these supremely terrifying existences. My consciousness can only exist for 20 minutes. During these 20 minutes, I guarantee that no fallen creature will be able to touch your body. The Cheongsam girl spoke softly. His voice is not high, very calm and soft, but it is filled with an indescribable, overbearing, and decisive. It was as if the words he spoke were commands. No creature can defy it. Gu Yuan's heart skipped a beat. By himself, relying on his own ability, he has already extended the stay time to 48 minutes. Now, add this guarantee of the Cheongsam girl. That is to say, he can stay in compartment 0 for a full 68 minutes, more than double the 30 minutes originally planned. The rewards for completing the task will inevitably be raised to an inestimable level. This time, make a fortune, and after safety is guaranteed. Gu Yuan has some other thoughts. Since this Cheongsam girl is supremely terrifying, she must know many secrets. Maybe you can learn some new information from him? Chapter 116, Part 2. After a little deliberation, Gu Yuan put away the mythical ghosts and monsters and asked with a light smile. This beautiful lady, I don't know if I have this honor. Can you please help me answer the questions in my heart? The Cheongsam woman glanced at Gu Yuan. It seems that Gu Yuan's careful thinking can also be seen. At the moment, he chuckled and shook his head. You'd better not ask. Since you can come here, you must be no ordinary growth. Things that can confuse you are probably taboo in this world. Taboo things, once mentioned, will have to pay a price. I'm just a consciousness, and I can't stand the cursed calendar area. Unless, compared to my 20 minutes of asylum, you hope to get a plausible answer? Gu Yuan immediately dismissed the idea. It seems that there is no shortcut. There are many things that I still have to explore slowly by myself. In this world, the most important thing lies in strength. As long as there is enough horror, there is no need to bother looking for it, and Gu Yuan can naturally see all kinds of secrets in the world. If you don't have the strength, the more you know, the faster you will die. Compared to the Cheongsam woman's answer, Gu Yuan still values the practical benefits that 20 minutes of the world can bring. He said no more. Seize this precious time instead. Start studying other details in compartment 0. He took out all the wealth he had accumulated during this period of time. I want to see if it can cause changes in other portraits, so as to gain some substantial benefits. Red parchment, sandalwood comb, rusty compass. One after another, the strange objects were brought out. However, none of these things caused any vision. On the contrary, the Cheongsam girl at the side quietly watched this scene. His face changed slightly. There was a bit of shock in the originally calm eyes. It was as if the things that Gu Yuan took out made him startled and recalled some terrible things. Why are these things in your hands? Gu Yuan frowned. He keenly heard some unusual meanings. Do you know these things? The Cheongsam girl did not answer Gu Yuan's question. His eyes flickered slightly. It seems to be doing some kind of extremely intense thinking. After a long silence, he suddenly raised his hand, stretched out his 5 fingers, straightened into a knife shape, and suddenly cut off a strand of his own hair. And strangely enough, he himself is an illusory figure, seemingly somewhere between existence and non-existence. But the lock of hair that he cut off, from the virtual to the real, appeared in reality very strangely, and stretched straight, permeated with an indescribable sharpness. It's as if it's not hair, but an extremely terrifying sharp sword. Then, the woman in the cheongsam raised her hand and brought the lock of hair to Gu Yuan. Gu Yuan raised his eyebrows, somewhat surprised looking at the cheongsam girl. At this moment, the face of the cheongsam girl no longer had the charming smile before, but became extremely serious. He spoke very seriously. You are a very special existence. Take this thing as a gift from me. If you become prosperous in the future, don't forget today's fate. Gu Yuan's heart shook. There are countless thoughts passing through the heart of the eternal brain. It seems that these things he took out caused the cheongsam girl to have some unusual thoughts and obtain a special signal. That's why I took out this lock of hair, hoping to make a good relationship with Gu Yuan. Don't look at just a strand of hair. Seems trivial, but don't forget. The cheongsam woman's deity, that is a true supreme terror. Such an existence, even if it is just a strand of hair, can also carry some kind of extremely terrifying power. With the terrifying level of the girl in cheongsam, there are not many things in this infinite world that can make him so moved. Do these things in my hand have any special meaning? Gu Yuan thought quickly. There was no rush to pick up that strand of hair. And his action, it fell into the eyes of the cheongsam girl. But there are other interpretations. Why? Do you think it's too little? This strand of hair is quite a lot. But this is... Hey, okay, it's all on you. The cheongsam girl was a little anxious. He stomped his feet lightly, gritted his teeth slightly, and then started again. Lightly sketched a stroke in the void. A silver ring that was extremely simple, but full of some extremely strange aura appeared in his hand. Here, this is for you too. He spoke in a low voice, with a painful expression on his face. It seems that even with his status, taking out this ring, blood is dripping from his heart. Originally, I left this ring on the treacherous train and planned to give it to my future heirs, and now I also give it to you. This is the greatest sincerity I can show. If you think it's too little, then I can't help it. Gu Yuan's heart skipped a beat. Can't help but want to laugh. He never expected it. It was just an inadvertent hesitation. Actually, let the cheongsam girl dig out one more thing. It seems that this ring is extremely important to the cheongsam girl. He prepared it for his heir. And his reaction. This made Gu Yuan more sure of one thing. Perhaps he has been involved in a huge situation without knowing it. This bureau has a lot to do with it, and it may even have an impact on those truly supreme beings. That's why the cheongsam girl invested in him at all costs. It doesn't matter what bureau he is. You can't let go of what you get. As long as I am strong enough behind, no matter what game it is, I can jump out and become the manipulator behind the game. Also, the cheongsam woman made it clear that she wanted to invest in me, which is a kind of kindness. If I refuse this gift, maybe the woman in the cheongsam will take it as hostility. If you let him turn his face, it will be troublesome. Gu Yuan thought for a moment in his heart. Then he raised his hand without hesitation. Received these two gifts. The corresponding bloody screen immediately appeared. The above is the relevant introduction. Strange hair. Grade. Special item. No grade. Introduction. Comes from a certain supreme existence. It is one of his 3 original true hairs, with extremely terrifying cutting power. Touching it will kill you. Touching it will hurt you. Gu Yuan glanced at it. Can't help but be shocked. This strand of hair is more precious than he thought. It's not a random hair. It is one of the 3 original real hair of women in cheongsam, with some kind of slashing ability. Its importance is no less than that of the hands, feet, heart, and lungs. In a sense, this can already be compared with the left hand of a papermaker. The moves of the cheongsam woman are really extravagant. It can be seen how much he attaches importance to Gu Yuan. Almost immediately, Gu Yuan thought of a way to use this lock of hair. He can use this lock of hair as the raw material to add to the making of the copper coin sword. If everything goes well, that's when. The copper coin sword he made is made of 108 ghost copper coins as the main material, and the core is the original real hair of a cheongsam girl, woven with tens of thousands of silk threads of faith. Combining these things together, the power of the copper coin sword will inevitably reach an unimaginable height. Chapter 116, Part 3. No matter how strong the weird creature is, it will hurt if you touch it. Chapter 117, Part 1. Gu Yuan looked away from this strand of hair. He looked at another silver ring. The shape of the ring is very simple, and there is no gorgeous decoration. But there was a very strong cold aura hovering over it, and the faint prickling of human H's skin ached. Mysterious silver ring. Grade. Special. Special items. No grade. Introduction. the pinnacle work of the last goldsmith, which has an unimaginable blessing effect. When you wear this ring, any weird attacks you launch will receive special blessings, and the attack strength will be doubled. Note that doubling the strength is not the limit power of the silver ring, but your current limit. As your horror level increases, the silver ring will hold more multipliers. Yuan hastily glanced at it. The eyes couldn't help but widen a little. No wonder when she took out this silver ring, even with the status of this Cheongsam woman, she also showed such a sarcastic expression. This silver ring is simply too precious. He actually has the effect of increasing the intensity of strange attacks. Just double it. In Yuan's hands, there are already many shocking killing moves. For example, the just-developed deceitful Great Nirvana, or the linear state of the six-fold dark mythical ghost. Although Yuan is only 8 stars. But with these methods, it is enough to ignore the difference in the degree of terror and directly kill 9-star mid-level creatures. What if it matches with this ring? Double the strength of the blessing. I'm afraid it's as weird as a 9-star high level. Not to mention, this doubling effect is not the limit of the silver ring. As Yuan gradually grows, the true power of the silver ring will slowly unfold. Now it is double, then maybe triple, quadruple, or even higher. What kind of terrifying, monstrous potential is this? Without any exaggeration, the Cheongsam woman must have spent a lot of money. Well, I'm not talking nonsense, right? The 2 things I gave you are rare items. The Cheongsam woman said softly. Thank you for the gift. Yuan put away the ring, looked solemnly, and spoke in a deep voice. He owed the Cheongsam woman a big favor. The Cheongsam woman smiled coquettishly. It seems that he is very satisfied with Yuan's reaction. Her voice is soft and charming, melodious and melodious. It's still the same sentence. If you become prosperous in the future, don't forget this good relationship today. Yuan nodded calmly. That's natural. He has always had the temperament of repaying kindness and revenge, since the Cheongsam woman showed such great kindness to him. Then wait for the future, when you have the ability. If the Cheongsam woman is really in trouble, Yuan didn't mind giving her a hand either. Time passed between minutes and seconds. During this period of time, the surrounding gray is still surging. Corrupted creatures emerged one after another, and the level of terror is getting stronger and stronger. 9-star advanced, 9-star top. There are even 10-star juniors. Its terrifying aura is like an abyss, like a prison, extremely terrifying and creepy. But no matter what the strength of the fallen creature, there is only one end. The moment it appeared, it was directly chopped off by some invisible force, killing it instantly. This is the power of Cheongsam women. A supreme being like him, even if it's just a sliver of consciousness, still has unparalleled dominance. Soon, the 20-minute limit was reached. The slender and charming figure of the Cheongsam woman gradually faded away. He stared deeply at Yuan for the last time, and his voice became intermittent. My time is up. Perhaps there will be fate in the future, and we will meet again. Once I completely disappear and block the boundaries of fallen creatures, I will collapse immediately. You'd better get out of here as soon as possible. I've put a lot of money on you. If you die here, then I will lose a lot. Yuan nodded, without any hesitation. After bowing slightly to the Cheongsam woman, he ran directly to the skylight and evacuated the zero compartment. Although this trip has gained a lot of things, the overall strength has experienced an extremely terrifying surge. But Yuan is not blindly arrogant, he is very self-aware. Now the level of danger in Carriage Zero has reached an extremely terrifying level. 10-star depraved weirdness has emerged. That is no longer what he can handle with his current strength. If you continue to delay, there will only be a dead end. Go over the skylight and step up the stairs. The bloody screen of the horror game immediately floated up. You left compartment 0. You stayed in the 0 compartment for a total of 68 minutes this time. If you stay for an extra 38 minutes than the time required by the mission rewards you get will increase by 3%. Mission rewards are being settled. Yuan's eyes moved slightly. There was a bit of brilliance in the eyes. He risked his life to spend the extra time in the 0 car. Not a single minute was wasted. All of them were valuable. Every time you stay for 1 more minute, the task reward will increase by 10%. And under this superposition, the increase in Yuan's mission rewards directly soared to 380%. In other words, the reward he can obtain is about 4 times the original one. What a terrifying number. However, joy is joy. Yuan did not stop here. It's not safe here. Only the inside of the treacherous train is the real safe area. He closed the skylight without hesitation, then hurriedly rushed down the stairs, and rushed to the door. At the same time, the phantom of the Chong Sam woman completely disappeared. The invisible barrier in the void is also quietly dissipating. The gray immediately boiled violently. A total of 8 10-star fallen creatures walked out brazenly. Their eyes are full of extreme tyranny and madness, without any trace of emotion at all. In the moment of appearance, they were like wolves who smelled blood, and they all rushed towards the skylight crazily. The surging, terrifying, and strange aura, condensed into one body, roared like a terrifying prehistoric giant beast. These attacks slammed heavily on the treacherous train. A part of the strange power invaded along the gap of the skylight and collided in the narrow stairs, bringing out an extremely terrifying roar. This kind of massive attack looks terrifying, but it was in vain. Yuan has already run away. Moreover, this level of attack cannot shake the treacherous train at all. The treacherous train is still moving forward. Some kind of extremely strange light circulated on the car body. This kind of light seems to have an extremely terrible damage effect on fallen creatures. These degenerate creatures with a level of horror as high as 10-star low-level creatures all emitted burning white smoke from their bodies. They screamed pitifully, retreated hastily, and disappeared into the gray, the inside of the trick train. Since Yuan disappeared, Roshan Weiwei and Hongmao Weiwei stayed at the door and waited. Why don't you come back? Could it be that he died outside? Roshan spoke in a strange, muffled voice. Almost all the corpses that made up him frowned strangely. In his eyes, there was a strong, worried look. The red-haired man was a little puzzled. What are you worried about, Sheriff? Hasn't that human kid already become a super precious treasure? Chapter 117, Part 2. With this identity, there will be the blessing of the trick train. Isn't the zero carriage free to come and go? What do you know? Roshan snorted strangely. As the sheriff, he knows more taboos and secrets than the red-haired one. Even if you become a super VIP, Compartment 0 is not a safe place. There are a lot of monsters infesting there. The status of a super VIP can only help him solve part of the problem. But as time goes by, the monsters in the zero compartment will become stronger and stronger. Based on the current time, the monsters there... His voice paused slightly. There was also a faint sense of fear in the voice. It's like describing something extremely scary. It should have reached 10 stars. And more than one, heard the words. The red hair couldn't help but tremble all over strangely. A look of horror burst out in his eyes. Those scarlet hairs on his body even exploded involuntarily. All he knew before was that car number 0 was scary, but never expected that it would be so terrifying. There will be 10-star monsters? More than one? This is so special. Who can resist it? In his eyes, the sheriff whose terror level is at the middle 9-star level is already an extremely terrifying existence. He couldn't imagine how terrifying a 10-star monster must be. I'm afraid that just one breath is enough to crush him completely. He took a deep breath and spoke cautiously. Sheriff, why don't we wait here? That human kid is probably already dead. His level of terror is even worse than mine. How could he survive in Compartment 0? If he doesn't die, I can take my own head off and kick it like a ball. The voice did not fall. The door that was originally closed was kicked open roughly. The red hair standing close to the door was caught off guard strangely, and before he even had time to scream, he was shot flying out. Yuan strode into the carriage. Backhand completely locked the door of the room. Block all the aftermath of the attack outside the door. On Roshan's strange body, the countless human heads were all looking up and down at Yuan with incomparably surprised eyes. Not only did Yuan not die, not even a hair hurt, not even a decent wound in sight. It was as if there was no danger in Compartment 0, and he just went there for a vacation. This made Roshan a little unbelievable, and felt as if he had seen a ghost. How could Yuan be so good-looking? Asking for flowers. Could it be that what he knows, the secrets about the Zero car, are all farting? Or this human being in front of him has some kind of terrifying method far beyond his expectation? Think here. He couldn't help but looked at Yuan more carefully. Only then did I find out. Yuan's temperament seemed to have undergone a slight change. It even made him feel a vague sense of fear. Some dare not look straight. It's unbelievable. And in fact, he was right to feel this way. This trip to Carriage 0, Yuan has gained too much. There is a trick king who taught the law and got a way to strip the thread of faith. Research and develop a new trick. Combine the papermaker's left hand and the terrifying blood glove, two gradeless and weird things, and develop the great Nirvana sheep. Unearth the deeper powers of the dark myth, the eternal brain. Get a great gift from a Cheongsam girl, get original real hair, and a mysterious silver ring. Any one of these things, taken out alone, is a huge benefit that is enough to shock people. This made Gu Yuan's strength completely incapable of being calculated by the level of horror on paper. Don't look at Roshan's weird horror level, it's as high as 9-star intermediate. But as long as Gu Yuan is willing, he can be easily killed. What's the matter, Sheriff? Are you surprised to see me back? Gu Yuan smiled faintly. Roshan was a little bit tongue-tied, not knowing what to say. Gu Yuan walked calmly, crossing Roshan strangely. Under the shocked and terrified eyes of a car full of strange passengers, he came to the side of the seat that belonged to him. Mission settlement completed. Starting to distribute mission rewards. Congratulations, you have obtained a total of 17 8-star weird puzzles including the withered white flower, the wicked blood, and the weird heart. Congratulations, you have obtained a total of 11 8-star cursed props including rotten human skin, paper money for life, rusty scissors, and so on. Congratulations, you have obtained 12 ghost copper coins. Continuous prompts sounded in Gu Yuan's ears. The completion of this task also brought Gu Yuan an incomparably rich harvest. After all, he was in car number 0, so he lasted an extra 38 minutes. Under this kind of extra increase, there is such an astonishing profit that's quite normal. Beside Gu Yuan, one after another strange things emerged. Arranged in a circle around Gu Yuan, slightly undulating and oscillating, exuding an extremely strong cold aura. The other passengers looked strangely from afar, and they couldn't help showing deep envy in their eyes. Those weird things also have a huge attraction for them. Do you want to share too? Gu Yuan looked up. He looked at the passengers. There was also a gentle smile on the corner of his mouth. All the passengers trembled strangely. Then they lowered their heads in unison. They just dared to look at it. Not a single treacherous person dares to try to get their hands on this rich wealth. At this moment, who cannot understand that Gu Yuan is an extremely dangerous existence? If you really dare to stretch your claws, even if it will directly become a part of these weird things. Gu Yuan frowned slightly. There was a sharp murderous intent in his eyes. Not to mention, he was really thoughtful and wanted to slaughter this carriage. These weird creatures, in his opinion, are all weird jigsaw puzzles for walking. The more weird things you get, the more space you can improve for mythical weirdness. The entire carriage was instantly enveloped by this terrifying murderous intent. Many passengers were surprised. All of them changed their faces. Roshan on the side was strange, and also noticed this murderous intent. I couldn't help but feel a shock in my heart. He hurriedly stepped forward and spoke in a deep voice. Calm down. Don't mess around. Do you know why there are special rules and restrictions in the treacherous train, and passengers are not allowed to make trouble? I am worried that the passengers will fight and cause too many unnecessary downsizing. Passengers on the treacherous train must be kept within a constant range. If the number of passengers is too small, the train may collapse. Heard the words. Gu Yuan's heart skipped a beat. So the trick train still has such rules? Roshan had a strange expression on his face. You're the one who came back from compartment 0, and you know how scary it really is out there. Frankly speaking, we are now grasshoppers on a rope. If the treacherous train is destroyed, then we will all have to face the horror. You don't want us all to be left here forever, do you? Gu Yuan nodded slightly, pressed the killing intent in his heart. If it really triggers the collapse of the treacherous train, it will be terrible. Without the protection of the treacherous train, he couldn't withstand the horrible gray attack outside. Chapter 117, Part 3. If you really want to play tricks on these weird passengers, you have to wait for the train to arrive at the station. I know, don't worry, I won't mess around. He agreed indifferently. Immediately, he collected his mind and began to seriously take stock of what he had gained this time. Chapter 118, Part 1. Gu Yuan's gaze focused on the large area of strange things around him. There are 17 pieces of 8-star weird jigsaw puzzles. 8-star curse props, there are also 11 pieces. The vast majority of them, with no particular purpose, are mostly used to feed mythical spookiness. But there is one cursed item that Gu Yuan still attaches great importance to. Those are 3 stacked, colorful coins. By life paper money. Grade. 8-star cursed props. Introduction. Keep these ghost coins, they can be used to buy your life. When you are attacked by strange creatures, hand them the coins, and they will give up attacking you. This thing is very important. It is a very useful life-saving tool. It can be used to buy strange creatures and turn enemies into friends. At critical times, this might turn the tide. Gu Yuan raised his hand and put away the life-buying paper money. The other weird things are all incorporated into the mythical space and fed to those mythical weirdnesses. Under the nourishment of these weird things, all the myths and weirdness have undergone a transformation, and the horror level has stepped into the 8-star intermediate level. Gu Yuan's comprehensive strength. So go one step further. Immediately afterwards, Gu Yuan's eyes were fixed on the last task reward. It was a total of 12 ghost copper coins with green copper rust and a terrible cold atmosphere. After looting the pawn shop, the ghost copper coins in Gu Yuan's hand increased to a terrifying amount of 96. Now, add these 12 mission rewards. That is a complete 108 pieces, completely assembled. Gu Yuan has accumulated tens of thousands of silk threads of faith, coupled with the original real hair sent by the Cheongsam girl. All materials are ready. All is ready except for the opportunity. Gu Yuan 990 turned his head and looked at Roshan strangely. Sheriff, I have a request. Roshan was weird and didn't dare to neglect it all. He quickly greeted him. He could see it. The current Gu Yuan is the fierce god on this treacherous train. In order to ensure the smooth operation of the treacherous train, then he must desperately support this master and satisfy all reasonable demands of this master, so as not to make any more troubles. You say, as long as I can do it, as long as it doesn't affect the safety of the treacherous train, I will be satisfied. Gu Yuan smiled faintly. I have something to do, and I don't want to be disturbed during the period. Can you change me to an empty car? Roshan nodded strangely. He agreed without hesitation. No problem. What do you think of the number 1 car I'm in? Passengers are not allowed to enter there. It's my exclusive office. It's quite quiet. Gu Yuan glanced at him, slightly surprised. Is that so? Then what do you do? Roshan twisted his body strangely and spoke in a muffled voice. I'll guard you at the entrance of the carriage to make sure nothing disturbs you. He voluntarily gave up his office and offered to be a security guard. Humble to the extreme. To appease Gu Yuan. Roshan is weird. This can be regarded as unscrupulous. The trick train has been running for so many years. Gu Du is the only passenger who can enjoy this kind of treatment. Gu Yuan is not polite either. Nodding calmly, he agreed. Okay, then go to compartment 1. 11 in compartment 1. It was empty and very quiet. Only the furnace in the corner was constantly surging with gloomy flames. Gu Yuan stood quietly in the center of the carriage, suddenly raised his hand. The 3 materials that had been prepared a long time ago all appeared neatly in front of me. A total of 108 ghost copper coins are arranged in a special way. There is a strange ray of light that flows back and forth on it, making it extremely mysterious and extremely hidden. Don't look at the single ghost coin. It's just a 4-star cursed item. But so many ghost copper coins are combined, they are connected and resonate with each other, and the power presented is even more terrifying than ordinary 9-star cursed props. After all, this is a strange thing created by the King of Wei himself. Nature is extraordinary. Tens of thousands of silk threads of faith, extremely thin and almost undetectable, twisted slightly in the air, printing out light waves like flowing water. This is all from the human players who were saved by Gu Yuan. They are grateful to Gu Yuan, admire Gu Yuan, worship Gu Yuan, and have unparalleled piety and fanaticism in their hearts. This power of faith is a firm and indelible special substance. There is also the original real hair from the woman in the Cheongsam, stretched straight, filled with an extremely terrifying sharpness. If you get a little closer, you will be directly stabbed in the soul by this fierce and sharp air. The Cheongsam girl's personality is too high, a true supreme terror. His original real hair can be regarded as one of the most precious things in this world. Each of these 3 materials is extraordinary. Each piece represents an indescribable weight, which will drive countless strange creatures crazy. Even those aloof and indescribable people will be tempted by it. And now, what Gu Yuan has to do? It is to realize a certain perfect combination of these 3 things according to one's own vision. Create a cursed prop that is truly exclusive to you. Now, on Gu Yuan's forehead, there were terrifying blue veins protruding, intertwined with each other, as if to form some kind of weird pattern. The eternal brain has been activated. This will make Gu Yuan's mind extremely clear, his mind extremely flexible, and it will be easier to find the delicate balance point of the combination of the 3 things. At the same time, in his eyes, there are terrifying runes and bloodshot threads that pervade the entire eyeball in the blink of an eye. The original pupil has also started to operate, playing its role. under this vision that breaks through all illusions and sees all truth. No subtle changes could skip Gu Yuan's eyes. Without any exaggeration, the eternal brain plus the primordial pupil, the combination of these two things is simply an unsolvable combination. Gu Yuan stood there, gazing at the three materials, his body standing tall like a mountain, as proud as a god, motionless. It looks like a sculpture, but in fact, Gu Yuan's eternal brain is running at an indescribable speed. This is like a supercomputer, doing crazy deduction. The flow trajectory of the strange air around, the characteristics of each ghost coin, the connection between ghost coins, how the threads of belief should be combined, how the power of the original real hair can be perfectly integrated. These countless thoughts, countless information, are colliding fiercely in Gu Yuan's eternal mind at a speed far beyond ordinary people's comprehension. In just a split second, your plan will come into being. But Gu Yuan quickly found out the problem and directly rejected it. Different schemes take their essence and discard their dross to combine a more excellent scheme, carrying out what can be called endless iterative upgrades. The forging of the copper coin sword is very important, and he does not want any problems to arise. He must deduce the most perfect strategy. Roshan stood strangely at the junction of the carriages, carefully observing Gu Yuan's actions. He also doesn't know what Gu Yuan is doing, but he wisely kept silent. Chapter 118, Part 2. Don't dare to disturb this fierce god at all. Once Gu Yuan went crazy, he couldn't hold it back at all, and the whole treacherous train was turned upside down, and the chickens and dogs were restless. After a long time, Gu Yuan finally raised his head. There was an indescribable brilliance in his eyes. After countless billions of deductions by the eternal brain, he finally succeeded in coming up with the most perfect solution possible under the current state. Mix these special materials together, maintain their respective characteristics, form a certain complementary and balanced posture, and then create a curse prop that is exclusive to me. This process is more difficult than I imagined. Fortunately, I successfully triggered the special achievement and got the super auxiliary buff of Eternal Brain. Otherwise, it is absolutely impossible to deduce this perfect plan. Gu Yuan muttered to himself, lamented the explosive difficulty of this kind of thing. Immediately, without any hesitation, he slowly started to move. He raised his hands, and 10 slender fingers began to dance wantonly like playing a piano. The movements are elegant and perfect, with a spontaneous brilliance, as if every move perfectly follows the laws of the universe. It's like a unique art that makes people ecstatic. 108 ghost copper coins, all neatly arranged like the kind of soldiers who completely obey orders. Under his control, the tens of thousands of threads of faith danced as if they had their own life, and shuttled among the copper coins with great dexterity. It's like threading a needle. It's extremely familiar and transparent. This kind of steps, Gu Yuan has already simulated countless times in his mind. Naturally, practice makes perfect, easy to kill. The original real hair from the Cheongsam girl kept dancing and flowing into it. He didn't show the slightest resistance, but enjoyed his fish and water, and his water and milk blended in. Soon, these 108 ghost copper coins are completely covered and entangled by the silk thread of faith, and the original real hair is completely integrated into it. The three things that were completely incompatible are now closely connected, interdependent, connected to each other, and integrated into one. Even if you look at it with a critical eye, you can't find any flaws at all. It's as if these three things should be one in themselves. This peerless copper coin sword, it's done. In the dark, there is an extremely terrifying aura rushing up. Get out of compartment 1. Roshan, who was standing at the junction of the carriages, trembled strangely, and immediately collapsed and fell to the ground. Even Roshan Wei, who is as strong as a 9-star intermediate, feels a shock that seems to come from the depths of his soul at this moment. He didn't dare to look up at all, only dared to prostrate on the ground, trembling constantly. His heart was filled with indescribable shock. What did this human being do? Why is there such a terrible breath? He can't understand it. This has completely exceeded his cognition. Moreover, this terrifying aura did not stop. After crossing the strange meat mountain, it filled the entire strange train in an instant. In the 8 carriages, all the weird passengers made the same movements almost at the same time. They can't help but leave their seats kneeling on the ground with a plop, facing the position of the number 1 compartment where the breath came from, respectfully kowtow to worship. They don't know why they do this. I just felt that at that moment, there was an inexplicable impulse that completely took over their bodies, making them just want to worship. What the hell is there? Is it the movement made by that human just now? All the passengers looked at each other strangely, and their eyes were full of shock that couldn't be concealed. And out of sight, this terrifying aura has passed through the shackles of the treacherous train and spread unstoppably. The gray that originally shrouded around the treacherous train abruptly receded. It's like being forcibly dispersed by some extremely terrifying force. Countless fallen creatures were all exposed, and these fallen creatures, like the passengers in the carriage, are all prostrating crazily. It seems to be making a pilgrimage to the supreme God in my heart. The roof of the trick train. It was very peaceful here. There are only 10 portraits of super VIPs, and their imprints are engraved here. At the moment, except for the portrait of Yuan himself, the other 9 portraits all seem to have sensed something, and suddenly erupted with an unimaginably terrifying light. It seems that the consciousness stored in the portrait is all moved by this inexplicable breath, outside of endless time and space. Countless scarlet eyes suddenly opened. In every eyeball, endless and terrifying malice surged. This movement, the supremely terrifying evil god muttered to himself. Immediately, countless eyeballs turned at the same time, looking towards the direction from which the wave came. Countless terrifying gazes penetrate the boundless universe, projecting quality. Wanting to see what it is, it can actually exude such an aura that shocks him. But in the dark, there is some kind of mysterious power that blocks his peeping. The circle that seemed to cover the universe appeared in front of her again. Damn it! Why can't I see it again? The evil god was furious for a while, and let out a crazy roar. The roar reverberated in the universe, bringing forth a terrifying wind of extinction. Similar scenarios also occur in other regions in the universe. There are endless tentacles, frenziedly flicking due to rage, and thousands of stars are falling off. There are boundless shadows, boiling and rushing under the fury, eroding countless galaxy. Countless black feathers fluttered, creating terrifying black holes one after another in the universe. This moment, many aloof and unspeakable people are all angry. With their status, everything is 0.7, almost giving and taking. All changes, all laws, are under your control. They are used to this feeling. However, now is a rare exception. They are eager to know where that terrifying aura comes from. But no matter what methods are exhausted, there is no way to spy on it. It's really frustrating to the extreme. As a majestic evil god, how has he ever suffered such grievances? Among the treacherous trains, Yuan's face remained unchanged. He could feel that the pattern of nothingness in the palm of his right hand was running at an unimaginable frequency, releasing a frightening heat. What does this phenomenon mean? He naturally knew it well. It seems that the level of horror of the copper coin sword I created is much more exaggerated than I expected. His appearance seems to have alarmed many incredible existences. Now, those beings are frantically tracing the information and location of the copper coin sword. If it weren't for the pattern of nothingness to cover these traces for me, I'm afraid that it won't be long before the nameless people will find this place. Yuan muttered softly to himself. I couldn't help being a little shocked in my heart. And after a brief astonishment, it is that deep sense of ecstasy. Even the unspeakable are doing everything they can to find out. This is enough proof. Yuan tried every means to create this copper coin sword. What an astonishment! How horrible and perverse. Chapter 118, Part 3. In front of him, the bloody screen of the horror game emerged. The words on it are even more distorted and terrifying than before, with an indescribable mystery. Created a miracle. Several shocking scarlet exclamation marks came into view. It seems that only this kind of expression can truly describe the shock of horror. Games. Chapter 119, Part 1. Yuan's eyes moved slightly. His eyes were completely focused on the screen. He would love to see it. In the horror game's own evaluation system, what status will the copper coin sword have? Soon, the distorted text on the bloody screen immediately changed strangely. Special copper coin sword. Grade. Extraordinary creation, beyond the grade system. Introduction. This is an extraordinary creation that you have carefully designed using 3 extremely precious and strange things. It is a cursed prop exclusive to you. Perhaps, when you are strong enough in the future, you can use this copper coin sword to directly cut off the long river of time, obliterate all traces left in the world, and kill the indescribable. Yuan's heart skipped a beat. He originally thought that this copper coin sword was at best a gradeless and weird thing. But unexpectedly, the horror game directly gave such a high position. Extraordinary creation. Beyond the grade system, what is this concept? Even the grade system can no longer restrain and accommodate. Ordinary gradeless weird things, in front of this copper coin sword, have no qualifications to touch porcelain at all. And, by the description of the thriller game, this copper coin sword has some unbelievable potential for terrifying development. In the future, it may be possible to use this to cut off the long river of time with one sword, and consecrate all those indescribable people who are high above. Call. Yuan took a deep breath. His gaze was extremely serious. Raise your hand and hold it on the hilt of this copper coin sword. The copper coin sword immediately vibrated strangely. It's as if he has some kind of consciousness of his own, expressing his true kindness to Yuan, the creator. This is a unique and exclusive connection. Only Yuan, the creator, can drive the copper coin sword flawlessly, displaying the supreme power of this extraordinary creation. If it was someone else, the first moment they touched the copper coin sword, they would encounter that kind of terrifying and strange attack. Even if he was able to withstand the attack and forcibly control the copper coin sword, the strange power that he could unleash would be highly incomplete. It is far from being able to compare with Yuan's personal control. Ghost copper coins are tainted with the aura of the King of Deception, and have the ability to spy on the secrets to a certain extent. The thread of faith represents the purest power of faith. 21. As for the original real hair, it is attached with the terrible cutting power. The current copper coin sword is equivalent to a hybrid of these three different powers. Well, how should I put it? This is like a highly cohesive trick entity, a continuous trick steady state. Yuan muttered to himself. Feel the terrifying power contained in the copper coin sword. Silently made his own evaluation. Immediately afterwards, he tentatively injected part of the strange power. Immediately, a strange light bloomed on the copper coin sword, and a terrifying aura that shook the soul permeated the air. He tentatively slashed forward. An extremely terrifying and strange attack whizzed out, slashing fiercely on the ground. Hiss, accompanied by an inaudible tearing sound. An extremely narrow and terrifying crack appeared on the floor of this treacherous train. It looked stunning. It was as if a hideous scar had been drawn suddenly. Yuan looked at this scene with some surprise. This is a trick train. A treacherous train that can walk in the gray and resist the attacks of countless fallen creatures. During the previous interview, Yuan had many fights with strange passengers. But no matter how fierce the battle was, it failed to cause any damage to the dangerous train itself. This shows that the treacherous train has a very strong self-protection ability. And now, relying on the copper coin sword, Yuan can cut through the floor of the treacherous train with one sword? This is unbelievable. Far exceeded Yuan's estimate. He knew that the copper coin sword he personally forged must be extremely terrifying. But I didn't expect it to be so terrifying. It is no exaggeration to say that with this copper coin sword, even if he encounters a top 9-star strange creature, Yuan is sure to fight. The position of the carriage junction. Roshan witnessed everything strangely. The countless human heads that make up his expression are all amazingly consistent. He was dumbfounded and stupefied. What surged in the eyes was a deep disbelief. What the hell? Is this a dream? Yuan's casual sword can actually cause damage to the treacherous train? What if he used more force? Isn't it going to cut off the whole treacherous train? At that moment, he rushed to Yuan's side in a hurry, with an extremely terrified look on his face. Father, brother, you are my dear father. Please, big brother, stop messing around. The trick train can't stand your troubles. If there is something wrong with the trick train and the gray outside seeps in, it will be a catastrophe. Passengers in the car, one counts as one, and all of them will die, including me, including you, big brother. Unknowingly, his address to Yuan is no longer an understatement, but an extremely humble and awe-inspiring big brother. It even borders on flattery. Yuan also coughed slightly in embarrassment. It was an accident. Don't worry, I know the seriousness. I won't test the sword in the carriage again. Assured by Yuan, Roshan felt weird, and he was relieved. But he didn't dare to rest assured. He could only put a smile on his face and stay by Yuan's side, in case Yuan made any troubles again. And at this moment, boom! Accompanied by this terrifying explosion, both Yuan and Roshan were a little unsteady on their feet, and subconsciously fell forward a few steps. The furnace in the corner, uncharacteristically, blazed up in an extremely terrifying manner, exuding an incomparably piercing chill. And at the end of the number 1 carriage, on the originally closed wall, a very hideous crack appeared strangely. This is... Yuan was slightly taken aback. There was a look of surprise in his eyes, and by his side, in Roshan's strange eyes, there was an expression of incomparably strong horror. That majestic and huge body even couldn't stop trembling. It was as if he had realized something extremely terrifying. What the hell is going on? Yuan frowned and asked sharply. On Roshan's strange body, the countless human heads all looked terrified and bitter. He spoke in an extremely hoarse and shrill voice. Strange train, emergency stop. This kind of thing is an extremely rare accident. Only one time in history. That time, a passenger stepped forward to reverse the deadlock, and he became a super VIP of the tricky train. Yuan's eyes turned cold. Should he be lucky or not? This kind of accident, which is rare in 1,000 years, will unexpectedly happen to him. He didn't panic and kept a high degree of calm all the time, asking sharply, what does the emergency stop of the treacherous train mean? What's next? What should we do? It seemed to be infected by Yuan's calmness. Roshan was also slightly calmer. His voice was hoarse and low. Once the treacherous train stops in an emergency, his isolation power against that gray will be temporarily invalid. That horrible gray color will seep into the compartment bit by bit. Chapter 119, Part 2. Moreover, the fallen creatures hidden in the gray will also seize this opportunity and attack the trains in a frenzy. So, what we have to do is to restart the treacherous train in the shortest possible time. Otherwise, once the gray spreads across the board, every one of the weird creatures on the train will be counted as one, and they will all die, and no one will be able to escape. Yuan nodded slightly. He can already see it. The gray outside the window has become more intense than ever. The outlines of a large number of fallen creatures have emerged. The crisis is coming in an indescribably terrible way. How can I start the trick train? Roshan took a deep breath strangely, as if recalling something extremely terrifying. He couldn't help shivering. According to the previous experience, the emergency stop of the trick train should be caused by an unknown invasion of the driver's cab. The invading force must be eliminated before the fire can be reignited. Originally, the cab and the compartment were not connected, and even I, the sheriff, couldn't get there. But now, after the emergency stop, that invisible barrier has disappeared. Across this crack is the cab. Saying that, Roshan gritted his teeth strangely. The countless corpses that make up him are all stretching out their hands at the same time, scratching wildly in the air and dancing wildly. Obviously, this is Roshan's weird way of launching the attack. An extremely terrifying and strange force swept out. Bang! The wall that was already full of cracks was broken down in an instant. Reveal what's behind. The driver's cab was empty, and there was no so-called driver at all. This treacherous train was running spontaneously without anyone controlling it. The instrument panel is already stained with rust, and the steering wheel is covered with dried blood stains, which looks extremely cold and weird. And Yuan's eyes, the first time, locked on the front door of the driver's cab. The car door was forcibly opened by a corner due to some strange force. There is a pitch-black ghost hand resting on the car door. It seems that something wants him to enter the cab. No doubt, the owner of this dark ghost hand is the reason why the treacherous train stopped suddenly. What the hell is this? Roshan took a deep breath strangely and muttered in horror. From this pitch-black ghost hand, he could feel an extremely strong sense of danger. You know, she is an existence with a level of terror as high as 9 stars. It can make him so terrified. That must be at least a 9-star high-level weirdness, or even a 9-star top level. Moreover, because of the strangeness of the mountain, I can feel it. That terrible sense of danger only comes from the suppression of terror. It also stems from a kind of terrifying personality in the dark. The master of the dark ghost hand. Suppress him in all directions. Could it be an indescribable person? It's over. It's really over now. His mentality collapsed, and he no longer had any courage to resist. His whole body went limp, and he collapsed directly to the ground. The eyes of those countless heads are full of some kind of extreme despair. Yuan glanced at him coldly. Can't help but snort coldly. What are you afraid of? This can't be the real unnameable. At most, it's just an avatar of an unknown being lost in the gray. I've experienced a lot of clones like this. It's not a problem to kill another one. Roshan trembled strangely. Some looked at Gu Yuan in disbelief. What is this human being talking about? He even killed the clone of the unknown? And didn't kill just one? This is too crazy, right? If other people said such things, then Roshan Wei would not believe it, and would just want to spray the other party to death with a mouthful of thick phlegm. But the person who said that was Gu Yuan. This makes him have to believe it. After all, Gu Yuan was a fierce man who stayed in the zero compartment for more than an hour, and he also forged an extraordinary creation as terrifying as a copper coin sword. For a heterogeneous existence like him, it is not impossible to kill a clone of the unknown. With this in mind, Roshan's weirdness immediately lifted his spirits and regained his fighting spirit. Brother, it's better for you. I'll make a move first, and I'll show you how deep this intruder is. As he said that, the thousands of rotten palms on his body all swayed in a strange posture, forming a certain unique rhythm. That strange aura rolled and roared, attacking the black hand. At this moment, Roshan didn't hold back the slightest bit, completely displaying his 9-star mid-level terrifying strength. At this time when life and death are at stake and time is at stake, if you keep it hidden, that is pure evil. And in the face of this attack, that pitch-black ghost hand seemed to have sensed it too. Lifting one finger, he pointed lightly in the strange direction of Roshan. The 763 strange, pulsating auras in the air disappeared in an instant, and Roshan let out a stern scream. His originally majestic and huge body was directly obliterated by this terrifying force by a third. This is the power of the clone of the 9-star high-level unknown person. Roshan was weird in front of him, completely vulnerable, pure crushing. Only by truly facing it can we understand how huge the invisible gap is. It's really hard to deal with, Gu Yuan muttered to himself, silently raised the copper coin sword. He always felt that the appearance of this indescribable clone was definitely not a tower. Most of them were attracted by the aura emanating from the completion of the copper coin sword. Really, after feeling the breath of the copper coin sword, this pitch-black ghost hand also immediately became manic, and all 5 fingers began to tremble, exuding an unspeakable greed and longing. Want my coin sword? That depends on whether you can handle it. Gu Yuan sneered. Just in time. He is worried that there is no suitable object to try the sword. Now just take this guy. Let's try how high the copper coin sword can reach. Next moment, without hesitation, he took a big step directly. One step into the cab. The chaotic energy surged all over the body, and the powerful and strange power was poured into the copper coin sword. Then he slashed down on this pitch-black ghost hand without mercy. The original real hair vibrated. The silk thread of faith shone with light, and the 108 ghost copper coins all burst into terrifying brilliance at this moment. Poof! Just click. This pitch-black ghost hand was cut off by Qi Jin. The stinky blood shot out, splashing the entire cab. Even with the physical background of the avatar of the indescribable person, it is completely unable to stop the sharpness of the copper coin sword. Roshan watched strangely from afar, his heart filled with unparalleled shock. This result is astonishing. The situation of his shot and the situation of Gu Yuan's shot formed an extremely strong contrast and contrast. He was hanged and beaten, and Gu Yuan directly slapped this indescribable avatar. There is no comparison at all. Thinking about it again, Gu Yuan's current horror level is only 8 stars, and he has not yet reached the threshold of 9 stars. Roshan is so weird that he can't wait to bump his head to death. Compared with Gu Yuan, the extra horrors he has are like added to the stomach of a dog. And after the ghost hand broke. Chapter 119, Part 3. The car door was completely closed with a bang without any force interference. The cab returned to normal, and all the instruments flickered strangely in an instant. Roshan was overjoyed upon seeing this. He hastily opened his mouth and shouted, "Brother, it's done. As long as the trick train is restarted, we will be safe." However, Gu Yuan was not in a hurry to start the train. Instead, he made a move that shocked Roshan so strangely. He kicked open the train door and raised the copper coin sword again. Seeing the meaning, it turned out that he wanted to beat the dog in the water and completely destroy the avatar of the indescribable person. Chapter 120, Part 1. Brother, you? Roshan felt weird and only felt that his head was throbbing with veins. In the eyes of those heads on the body, there is an expression of shock that cannot be concealed. Now that the unknown person's wrist has been cut off, the treacherous train has eliminated the interference and returned to normal. It is the best time to resume operation and get out of danger. Shouldn't the reaction of the vast majority of people at this time be to start the trick train immediately? But what about Gu Yuan? He actually wanted to completely kill the clone of that unknown person. This is outrageous. He has been on the treacherous train all his life, welcoming and seeing off passengers, and has seen many weird passengers. But someone as crazy as Gu Yuan, Scorpion Baba, the only one. At this time, half of Gu Yuan's body was already sticking out of the train. He could see very clearly that there was a charred body that looked like it had been roasted, standing not far from the car door. One of his hands had been severed by Qi Jin, dripping down with stinky blood. Amidst the indifference in his eyes, there was also a bit of crazy resentment. He stared at Gu Yuan extremely darkly and fiercely. It seems that they want to pounce directly and tear Gu Yuan and the train together. With a low growl, he raised the intact mail. The 5 fingers trembled slightly. Gu Yuan felt his hair stand on end for a moment. A layer of goosebumps involuntarily formed on the skin all over his body. The blood flow in the body also became somewhat disordered. Apparently, this unknown clone has already launched its own weird attack on Gu Yuan. Can't drag. Gu Yuan muttered to himself. His eyes were cold. Raised the copper coin sword with a strange cold light again. 108 ghost copper coins all vibrated. That terrifying force surged up again. And this time, in addition to the copper coin sword, a silver ring on Gu Yuan's finger also glowed with an extremely sharp and threatening cold light. This ring from a Cheongsam girl was also activated by Gu Yuan. He has only one function. That is blessing. Let the strength of any strange attack be doubled directly. That fluttering sword earlier directly cut off a hand of the pitch-black corpse. What about the blessed sword now? It will only be stronger and more terrifying than before. Laugh. Gu Yuan turned his wrist, and the copper coin sword was in a cutting state from top to bottom, slashing forward fiercely. The air fluctuated violently, and a tearing sound could be heard. The pitch-black corpse on the opposite side froze immediately. Then on the top of the sky, a scarlet blood line suddenly appeared. This line of blood expanded rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. It spreads down from the top of the sky, all the way through the face, throat, and chest. The whole body split apart in an instant. This avatar of the nameless being lost in the gray was slashed alive by Gu Yuan directly with a sword. This is the terrifying power that the copper coin sword can display after being blessed by the silver ring. And, among the shattered corpses, there was a scorched heart that was still beating continuously. Gu Yuan's eyes moved slightly. There was a look of surprise in his eyes. Weird puzzle. How come? Shouldn't fallen creatures not produce jigsaw puzzles? Even though I was extremely puzzled. But Gu Yuan was not slow at all. No matter what. This kind of weird jigsaw puzzle that is high grade and has something to do with evil gods must not be wasted. This kind of thing, if you make good use of it, that will be of great help to the improvement of Gu Yuan's overall strength. Terrible chaotic energy surged out, entangled directly on the scorched heart, and pulled it back to his side abruptly. In the distance, gray surges. There are more fallen creatures, attracted by Gu Yuan's breath. Gu Yuan was not interested in them, so he simply retreated into the treacherous train and closed the door wolfishly. Big brother. The avatar of the nameless. You really killed it? Roshan stood there strangely, dumbfounded. I can't believe it at all. His eyes fixed on Gu Yuan's palm. That charred heart was tightly held by Gu Yuan in his hand, still beating. On it, there is an extremely strong and terrifying strange aura lingering, and it is full of the kind of terrifying personality that makes Roshan strangely shocked, although he has fully realized how powerful and terrifying Gu Yuan is. But when witnessing this scene with your own eyes, it still brought him an unparalleled psychological shock. Gu Yuan looked calm. There is no hint of gleeful complacency. It's as if I just did a very trivial thing. He felt the breath of this heart coldly. I probably understand. This avatar of the nameless person may not be completely infected by the corrupted breath because its personality is high enough. In other words, he is not a fallen creature in the full sense, and still retains very primitive power. So, after killing him, you can get his weird puzzle. This is really an unexpected harvest. Gu Yuan muttered to himself. In front of Gu Yuan, the related information about the scorched heart appeared in front of Gu Yuan. A live heart. Grade. 9-star weird puzzle. Introduction. This is a very terrifying heart, which contains some kind of indescribable control power. Have you ever felt that when you look at him, your heart seems to be beating at the same frequency? Hastily glanced at it. Gu Yuan couldn't help frowning. and his heart trembled. He did find something unusual. My own heartbeat and the beating rate of this scorched black heart are indeed slowly becoming the same. It was as if he was trying to invade Gu Yuan's heart. Want to take Gu Yuan's heart under his control. All this happened in silence. It was this scorched black heart, a spontaneous and strange attack. For the time being, Gu Yuan was not harmed in any way. But if you ignore it and let this manipulation continue, then perhaps at some point, the accumulation of this strange power will reach a limit. That could be a disaster. These indescribable people really don't even have a fuel-efficient lamp. Even if you die, you will be safe. Gu Yuan's eyes were cold, and he muttered to himself. With a movement of mind, chaos energy surged up, cutting off this invisible connection. Immediately, the heart was sent directly into the mythical space. Exactly. It was sent to the mythical space, on the long river of time, in front of Mo Yangjian. With this arrangement, Gu Yuan naturally has his own test area. As a result, the other mythical beings have all mastered a kind of power from the evil god. Only Mo Yangjian doesn't have it. Secondly, Mo Yangjian has the power of time, and has the killer move of the future body. If the strength of Demon Yangjian's deity can be improved, then the strength of the future body will naturally increase accordingly. Such comprehensive income will come even greater. Thirdly, the power contained in the scorched heart is an extremely terrifying control area. By manipulating a series of physiological characteristics such as the heartbeat, blood, and skin of other creatures, they carry out strange attacks. This kind of power is very powerful, but it seems that it takes a certain amount of time to brew, and it cannot achieve an instant explosion. Mo Yangjian can completely speed up this process. It fits him well. Praise be to my Lord. May my Lord be immortal. Chapter 120, Part 2. Mo Yangjian's eyes were burning. Even the vicious dog beside him couldn't help showing that greedy look. The benefits that this scorched black heart can bring to them are extremely huge. After the salute, without hesitation, Mo Yangjian directly began to absorb the surging and strange power contained in the scorched heart. The degree of terror of oneself also climbed rapidly. Gu Yuan didn't pay too much attention to him. Instead, he withdrew his mind and looked at a series of dashboards in front of him. Although the culprit who caused the sudden stop of the treacherous train has been executed, but that doesn't mean the crisis is over. There are already strands of gray that have penetrated into the interior of the treacherous train. Endless fallen creatures have surrounded the treacherous train and began to smash into the glass of the train frantically. Countless grimaces swaying, countless ghost hands waving. It looks incomparably east and evil. The train must be started immediately. How does it work? He snapped. Roshan was weird and didn't dare to be negligent, and confided all the things he knew. The starting method is quite complicated and cumbersome. However, Gu Yuan is now assisted by the eternal brain. These things can't help him. Chaos chi wrapped around the fingertips, exhaling extremely powerful and strange power. He forcibly pressed down the rusty instrument buttons in a certain order. Finally, he jerked the joystick. This treacherous train, which had been shut down for a long time, suddenly started to vibrate again, making an extremely violent roar. That mysterious luster spread throughout the entire train carriage in an instant. All the intruding grays were swept away by Chong, Wang's Zhao, Xing in an instant. The fallen creatures around them all seemed to be burned by something, and each and every one of them wailed and roared incomparably sternly. The wheels of the treacherous train rattled, and with an unstoppable attitude, it continued to drive forward and lost. All the fallen creatures standing in front of them were directly crushed and turned into pieces of flying powder. The emergency train parking crisis has been completely resolved. Roshan breathed a sigh of relief. Limp on the ground. Although it was only a few minutes, to him, it was like countless years. Let him be exhausted physically and mentally, so frightened that he is about to collapse. The look in his eyes has become extremely awe-inspiring. If it weren't for Gu Yuan, then today's emergency stop means a huge disaster. All the weird things on the train, one counts as one, and all of them must die. Gu Yuan was just about to turn around and leave the cockpit. In front of him, the bloody screen of the horror game reappeared. You have successfully restarted the trick train. This was originally the duty of the driver of the treacherous train. Congratulations, you have been approved by the tricky train and obtained the ID of the train driver. A somewhat worn badge appeared in front of Gu Yuan. The runes are shining brightly, exuding a strange aura. Gu Yuan was slightly taken aback. Immediately, A look of surprise could not help bursting out in his eyes. Chapter 121, Part 1. This is the driver's ID? Very good. There is no place to find when you break through the iron shoes, and it takes no effort to get it. Looking at this badge with a rather familiar shape, Gu Yuan's eyes lit up. He has experienced so many and complicated things along the way that he almost forgot about it. On this treacherous train, there are 3 different identification marks: train conductor, police officer, driver. According to the tips of the horror game, if you can collect all the 3 identities, there will be a very special surprise. And now, Gu Yuan has done it. He gently raised his hand. The previous 2 identification marks were directly extracted from the mythical space. Same size, same material. It's just that the runes engraved on it are very subtly different. It's like some kind of very weird and peculiar text. Now, the 3 identities come together. There seemed to be some kind of extremely unique chain reaction. The runes engraved on it all began to flicker, and the strange aura lingering around them also vibrated continuously. This vibration ranges from slight to severe. In the end, it even spread to the entire treacherous train. It was as if Gu Yuan had collected all 3 identification marks. Let this treacherous train undergo some extremely wonderful changes. Roshan stood at the side strangely, watching all this with some dullness. In the eyes of all the heads on the body, there is a deep blank look in use. The current changes of the treacherous train have far exceeded his cognition. After all, driver IDs are very rare. First, the emergency stop of the trick train must be triggered, and then the abnormal factors that interfere with the trick train must be resolved to restart the trick train. The difficulty of this series of processes is simply overwhelming. Looking at the entire history of the treacherous train, only 2 people got it, and the previous Super VIP did not seek the identity of the conductor and the policeman. That is, since the birth of the trick train, those who can successfully collect all these identification marks. Only Gu Yuan alone. This is an unprecedented feat. Ordinary people can't do it at all. Even though Roshan is weird, this is the first time I've seen him. So he doesn't know what will happen when these 3 different identities are gathered in one person. Next moment, those 3 identity marks shattered at the same time. A terrifying power diffused out, connecting with the treacherous train. The 8 carriages all erupted with terrifying cold light, rushing towards the driver's cab at an excessive speed. Many strange passengers panicked, their faces were ashen, and their bodies were trembling. They subconsciously thought that another terrible disaster had come. Roshan was also weird. 287 looked shocked. The cold light gathers and slowly dims. A model train about 2 meters long, like a toy, appeared in front of Gu Yuan out of nowhere. The carriage was stained with rust, and there were many stains from which I did not know. The wheels are spinning crazily, but they are strangely stuck in place, motionless. Gu Yuan's heart skipped a beat. He boarded the 0 car. It can be regarded as witnessing the whole picture of the treacherous train. And the model train in front of him is a complete reenactment of the sneaky train, a miniature version of the sneaky train. All styles and shapes are exactly the same. Even the location of those stains has not changed. This made Gu Yuan's heart immediately sprout a very bold idea. So, if you can gather all 3 different identities, does it mean that you can get some special power of the treacherous train? Gu Yuan muttered to himself. Some can't believe it. The treacherous train is an extremely special existence. It can move forward in this extremely terrifying gray, so that passengers will not be harmed. This is enough to prove how terrifying its essence is. It would undoubtedly be a great thing for Gu Yuan if he could obtain part of his power. Next moment, relevant introduction information appeared in front of Gu Yuan. Strange train model. Grade. 9-star weird puzzle. Introduction. Do you know the essence of the deceitful train? It can cross the barriers of the world, cross the dimension of the universe, travel in different areas, and transport endless passengers to their destinations. And now, what you see is part of the power of the treacherous train. Make good use of him. Maybe you can also break the barrier between the world and the world. Gu Yuan glanced at it. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. It's like there is a rolling thunder rushing past in my heart. This simple introduction made Gu Yuan think of a lot of things in an instant. He understood the principle of the trick train. The power of the treacherous train is actually a very terrifying space shuttle ability. Even travel through worlds and universes. Gu Yuan originally thought that the treacherous train could restrain Gray to some extent, but it is not. The power of the treacherous train can't actually suppress Gray. He just opened up an additional special space. It seems that he is driving in gray. In fact, it is in two completely different dimensions from gray. Therefore, no matter it is the Phi train or the passengers on the train, they can be safe and sound from the gray attack. Only an existence like the avatar of the indescribable person can break the space boundary and forcibly interfere with the operation of the treacherous train. After a brief surprise, Yuan just calmed down. More exciting thoughts flashed through my mind. He had already determined the fabricating idea of the sixth dark myth a long time ago. Focus on space power. Earlier, when he was in the Guile Casino, he got an 8-star cursed item, Death Gambler. Later, at the Weird Pawn Shop, he looted another 7-star weird jigsaw puzzle, the Weird Night Pearl, plus the model of the trick train in front of you. It seems that we have gathered all the materials we need. It's time for a new round of dark mythology. With this in mind, Yuan didn't hesitate at all. A heartbeat synced directly into the mythical space. Now, Mo Yangjian had already finished devouring and absorbing the scorched heart. The horror level has skyrocketed from the previous 8-star intermediate level to the 9-star elementary level. He is more closely connected with the eternity of time. The looming future body behind him is also more terrifying than the previous aura. It seems that there is already a 10-star primary horror in the vagueness. Moreover, the position of Mo Yangjian's chest has become empty and empty. Through the skin as thin as a cicada's wing, you can clearly see the appearance of the inner heart. That heart was beating in a strange posture, emitting extremely terrifying spiritual fluctuations. The strange aura around it was all distorted by the influence and jumped along with it. It is clear. Mo Yangjian has successfully acquired the terrifying power hidden in the scorched heart. He can already manipulate other things to achieve some kind of terrifying and strange attack that is incomprehensible. This is a great progress. Yuan nodded slightly, very happy with it. And the other side, it is the strange 5 paper figurines that Yuan took in a long time ago. They all fell into a deep sleep. Endless chaotic air circles and interweaves around them, forming a transparent cocoon. Chapter 121, Part 2. It seems that they have obtained some kind of indescribable great fortune in the mythical space. I am digesting the benefits through deep sleep, so as to realize the sublimation and leap of life level. I don't know what changes will happen to these guys. Yuan whispered to himself. My heart is full of expectations. An intuition told him that perhaps these paper figurines were weird and could bring him some great surprises. The top priority is to concentrate resources and fabricate new dark myths, he muttered to himself. Turn your eyes away from the strange body of the paper figurine and cast your eyes on this vast and mysterious mythical space. At this moment, the endless chaotic energy vibrates and dances at the same time, as if cheering. The long river of time and the long river of blood are both surging and rushing at a faster speed than before, splashing out waves of tumbling waves. The endless deep abyss trembled slightly, and the mysterious and primitive light flowed endlessly. On the ancient soul tree, there are hundreds of millions of flowers blooming. Countless visions spontaneously arise in the mythical space. It seems that they all have a premonition that there is another terrifying mythical statue that will be created by Yuan. And those 3 pieces of material that had been prepared a long time ago also appeared in front of Yuan. The dark gambling cup of death, the eerie glowing night pearl, and the rusty model train. As for saying, this time, what kind of dark myth to fabricate, Yuan has already conceived it. He looked solemnly, coughed lightly, and then opened his mouth slowly. The voice is calm, without any emotion, but it is filled with an unspeakable coercion. It's as if a high-ranking god is declaring his supreme decree. Since the birth of endless nether abyss, there has been a mysterious Buddhist sect accompanying it. Endless worlds, universes with countless dimensions, all exist because of Buddhism. All space concepts and hundreds of millions of space skills are derived from Buddhism. Behind the empty door, there is an immeasurable place connected, and an immeasurable space runs through. Through the empty gate, you will be able to cross billions of miles of ocean, regardless of the gap between low-dimensional and high-dimensional, and freely reach any place in the heavens and worlds. This time, Yuan first created a sacred place of space power. Follow his words. The mythical space changed immediately. Above the endless abyss, countless chaotic chi surged up. There is an extremely simple and mysterious door, which suddenly appeared out of thin air and opened up. He just stood silently above the abyss, illusory yet real. There is a kind of invisible power in the dark, connecting him with the entire mythical space. Countless spaces gather here. High-dimensional and low-dimensional intersect here. Hundreds of millions of years of space power have worked together to form a flawless space spirit bead. Under Gu Yuan's control, the weird night pearl swooped straight to the center of the empty door. It spins wildly there, becoming more and more smooth, more and more transparent, and more pure. Unleash an indescribably terrifying and strange light. It's as if a sun was born out of thin air. After another billions of years, a bunch of petals from the soul mother tree withered, was captured by the Buddhist gate, and combined with the spatial spirit beads. As a result, the space spirit bead gave birth to consciousness, gave birth to life, and began to look at the world. He is in the barriers of countless worlds walking through, wandering on the edge of the infinite universe. Nothing can stop his footsteps. The power of space is with him like a shadow. His real name. Call it an evil spirit of Buddhism. Nie. In the soul mother tree, there was a bunch of petals that fell off according to Gu Yuan's will. Rotating continuously in the air, it presents a lotus shape. It lightly landed on that weird night pearl and quietly blended into it, and the death-bedding cup and the model of the tricky train also roared down, spinning around the weird night pearl at high speed. There is a strong body, slowly shaped. He is suspended in front of the empty door. The naked body is covered with weird and alluring petal patterns. The model of the treacherous train is like a ribbon, agitating and floating on his shoulders. This is his hunting silk. The death-bedding cup is set on the wrist, spinning around. This is his circle of heaven and earth. Two human heads that looked exactly like him floated under his feet, supporting his body. This is his hot wheel. Under Gu Yuan's gaze, he slowly opened his eyes. Endless evil light burst out. An indescribably ferocious and strange aura swept across the entire mythical space in an instant. At the same time, his body became unreal, suddenly flashed out. Each moment appears in a completely different area. This kind of flickering movement has no rules at all. Even with Gu Yuan's eternal brain, it is impossible to calculate where he will fall in the next moment, because the moving speed is too fast, almost in the blink of an eye. In the entire mythical space, it is already densely packed, all of which are its afterimages. Congratulations! You have successfully fabricated the sixth dark myth. You have created a new mythical monster. Based on the grade of the weird material itself and its fit with the dark myth, the strength of this weird creature is 9-star primary. Evil spirit of Buddhism, cruel Nie. Level of horror, 9-star primary. Introduction. He comes from the mysterious Buddhism, and he is born to hold the authority of space. Everything is unstoppable. Gu Yuan looked at this line of introduction. A smile curled up at the corner of his mouth. After the demon Yangjian, he possessed the second mythical strangeness with a horror level of 9 stars. Now, he can be considered to have mastered the two most primitive and most divine abilities of time and space at the same time. This is hard to measure for the improvement of his strength. Moreover, because its own level of terror is high enough. As soon as Nie was born, he wrote the mythological space and constructed the connection between the dark and the dark. To a certain extent, he can induce the power of the mysterious Buddhism to bless himself, which will make his strength even more terrifying. Stop shaking. Show me your ghost. Gu Yuan spoke in a deep voice. One order. The dense phantoms all over the sky were instantly reduced to 3. Nie's tyrannical face was full of respect at the moment. He bowed slightly towards Gu Yuan. Follow my lord's will. Next moment. Start at his feet. One after another lotus blooms. In the blink of an eye, these lotus flowers densely covered most of the mythical space. On every lotus flower, there is an extremely strange cold light surging, which makes people feel instinctively creepy. Gu Yuan narrowed his eyes. As a mythical creator, naturally, he could easily see the horror of this piece of ghosts and creatures. Nie's spatial power has actually quietly permeated every corner of this lotus area. It seems that these lotus flowers seem to be all in one, blooming brilliantly. But in fact, they are all in different spaces. Chapter 121, Part 3. Between the different lotus flowers, there are very terrifying spatial cracks. If you touch them rashly, it will cause the space to collapse, and you will suffer extremely terrifying and strange attacks. Very powerful ghost. Gu Yuan nodded slightly and sighed sincerely. Immediately, the eternal brain began to run at high speed. Deduced the possibility of combining and superimposing lotus ghosts and other ghosts to build a new 7-fold dark mythical ghost. Although the 7th level ghost creature, compared to the 6th level, the difficulty has increased by more than 100,000 times. But the eternal brain is too powerful to hold back. Various combinations of ghosts and mythical beasts, various evolutionary details, all emerge in the brain at a fast speed. Just for a moment, Yuan successfully came up with the best construction plan, finding that extremely subtle balance. Point. Next one is Chapter 123, Part 1. That's it. This is the best balance of the superposition of 7 different ghosts and creatures. Yuan muttered to himself, almost subconsciously. The chaotic air surged with it. Surrounding him spread out, forming an extremely terrifying primitive ghost creature. An evil impermanence, Nie Yan Luo, Black Wukong, Shan, and Imo Yangjian are all weird myths, and they are all inspired. Then they release their ghosts one after another, constantly flowing yellow spring water. The terrifying hell that stands proudly, the sea of boiling blood, the circle of consciousness filled with cries, laughter, and roars, invisible and tangible ripples of time, and that densely packed lotus that covers endlessly. These elements, all combined in some unique way, stacked together. 7 levels of dark mythical ghosts appear in an instant. For a while, the entire mythical space fell silent in an instant. It's as if everything is back to the original, and everything is directly suppressed. And at the same time, on the treacherous train, Roshan was terrified, looking at Yuan cautiously with some horror. Unaware of Yuan's consciousness, he sneaked into the mythical space. All I could see was Yuan, with a calm face and serious eyes, as if he was thinking about something. Because of Yuan's previous feat of beheading the clone of an unknown person with a sword, he respects Yuan like a god now. He didn't dare to disturb Yuan at all, and only dared to wait carefully beside him, waiting for Yuan's possible summons and instructions. Sudden, Yuan's body trembled slightly. Roshan's eyes widened in surprise. Before he could react, then there was an extremely terrifying aura emanating from Yuan's body. He saw an extremely shocking scene in an instant. The endless accumulation of chaotic energy serves as the foundation for carrying all things. There is the yellow spring water full of death, flowing into hell. Countless monsters in hell are suffering from torture, and the blood that flows out gathers into a sea of blood. Above the sea of blood, there are endless monster lotus flowers floating. When the lotus bloomed, there were extremely sad cries, highly insane laughter, and that incomparably disgusting roar. A kind of strange ripples and fluctuations filled every corner, adding a vicissitudes and ancient atmosphere to this mysterious scene. Every element is shocking and trembling. Roshan trembled strangely. In the eyes of the countless heads on the body, there is a thick shock. This is a ghost, isn't it? He stammered, and his voice was already somewhat shrill. Even if he is a 9-star mid-level horror and weirdness, he is about to be scared to pee at this moment. Such things as ghosts. For 9-star weirdness, it's actually not uncommon. To be able to advance to this level, everyone is more or less the best among the strange creatures. Roshan Weird is no exception. He also has flesh and blood ghosts. In the past, he has always been very confident. I feel that my ghost belongs to the relatively powerful one. Even if it is not top-notch, it is still top-notch. However, after seeing Yuan's ghost, he finally understood how narrow-minded he was before. Compared with the real top ghost creatures, his ghost creatures are not even worthy of carrying shoes. If a contest on ghosts and creatures broke out with Yuan, then his flesh and blood ghosts and creatures would be defeated at the first moment of contact. How did a weak human being get to this point? Roshan muttered to himself strangely and somewhat in disbelief. His expression changed, and he suddenly remembered an extremely taboo past event. Is it true that, as the Super VIP said back then, the human race is the last hope of this era? The kindling field on the other side, shouldn't it be set up just for this human being? Just at this time, the treacherous train that was running at high speed suddenly shook slightly. The speed slows down visibly with the naked eye. As if the wheels had encountered some terrible resistance, they kept idling and burst out with an extremely ear-piercing buzzing sound. It hurts the eardrums. The treacherous train made an emergency stop again. That terrible gray color is quietly approaching again. What's the situation? Is it so unlucky today? There won't be another invasion? Roshan's expression changed strangely. He turned around in shock, then suddenly reacted. I couldn't help but swallow deeply. It's not like something has invaded the treacherous train, but the 7 layers of dark mythical ghosts shown by Gu Yuan are too strong, forcibly stopped the treacherous train. This is outrageous. Roshan is weird. He never thought in his life that he would encounter such a paradoxical thing. He took a deep breath, mustered up the courage to take a step forward, and said in a hiss, "Brother, receive the supernatural powers. Our trick train has delicate skin and tender meat, but it can't stand such a toss." Hear this sentence. Gu Yuan's consciousness instantly returned to his body. He glanced around and was a little surprised. 7 layers of dark mythical ghosts, even more terrifying than he expected. Did you force the tricky train to stop abruptly? He smiled lightly. The ghost creature retracted instantly, then step by step, once again launched the army of tricks. With the previous experience, this time his movements are particularly proficient. Indistinctly, Gu Yuan had a very strange feeling. It was as if he had a close connection with the treacherous train in front of him. He hesitated a little. He understood immediately. Where does this connection come from? Exactly. It comes from one of the core materials used in the creation of Qing Neza, the model of the trick train. Next moment, Gu Yuan immediately summoned Li Neza. He wants to see, will the appearance of Li Neza have some kind of special linkage effect with this treacherous train? And just as Gu Yuan expected, after Li Neza appeared, the whole treacherous train began to shake violently, as if it was cheering, jumping for joy, and welcoming its master. Li Neza stepped on 2 human heads and was suspended in midair. Some looked around curiously. He has a strange sense of familiarity with this treacherous train under his feet. My lord. He turned to look at Gu Yuan. Seems to be asking for advice. Gu Yuan nodded calmly. You are free to play. After getting permission, without any hesitation, Li Neza immediately flickered, shuttled around every corner of the treacherous train, and examined every detail here. Strange lotus imprints, following his actions, were imprinted in the corridors of the treacherous train, continuously forming a straight line, blooming enchantingly. The connection in the dark has become more solid and close. It's as if Li Neza and the treacherous train are about to merge into one. It turned out to be like this. I really took advantage of the sky. Gu Yuan felt it quietly. There is a gleam in the eyes. He probably understands the situation now. The trick train model itself is a part of the trick train, and Gu Yuan used it as the core material to create a dark myth, and forcibly kneaded the myth of Li Neza with supreme power. In this way, the weird train model presents a very weird state. He belongs to the trick train. At the same time, it belongs to Li Neza. As a medium, he established a channel between Li Neza and the treacherous train. Chapter 123, Part 2. And because the treacherous train is a thing without an owner, it has no wisdom consciousness. So in this twin connection, Li Neza also occupies the absolute dominance. In other words, Li Neza has unknowingly become the master of this treacherous train. What an astonishing achievement is this! Even if 10 9-star weird objects are added together, they can't compare to this one. This is a treasure that can run spontaneously, open up an independent space, and move freely in the gray. Of course, the power contained in the treacherous train itself is too amazing and terrifying. With Li Neza's current level, it is far from being able to control it perfectly. 0. It is unrealistic to change the operating rules of the treacherous train and drive it around. The weird power that needs to be consumed like that is too huge. Li Neza can't afford it. At most, at a certain moment, the trick train is forcibly summoned, coming through space and carrying out a terrifying impact on the enemy. Gu Yuan muttered to himself, his eyes burning. He was not disappointed at all. This level of control is already a huge surprise. What kind of weird creature can withstand the elusive collision of the weird train? This kind of terrorist attack can definitely be counted as a powerful trump card for Gu Yuan. It can be compared with Imo Yangjian's future body, and Roshan stood aside strangely. I stared blankly at this scene. He stretched out countless arms and rubbed his thousands of eyes vigorously at the same time. Some suspect that they are crazy. Strange train. Actually recognized the master? He hissed, talking to himself in shock. Today he has opened his eyes. After staying on the treacherous train for so many years, what I have seen and heard is not as much as I experienced today. From the moment Gu Yuan got on the car, the group seemed to deviate from the original track. Remove the curse, become a super VIP, stay in the 0 car for more than an hour, refine the copper coin sword, suppress and kill the clone of the unknown person, The 7 ghosts stopped the train for the second time. Let the train recognize the owner. All these piles, one by one. It sounds like a dream. Tell me about it. What a letter. Brother, how do you plan to deal with the trick train in the future? Roshan looked at Gu Yuan strangely, with awe in his eyes, and spoke cautiously. After all, the sneak train is Gu Yuan's private property now. Gu Yuan smiled faintly and waved his hands calmly. Don't worry, I won't interfere with the normal operation of the treacherous train for the time being. And you're still the policeman of the treacherous train. Maintain the order of the treacherous train for me. Got Gu Yuan's promise. Only then did Roshan heave a sigh of relief. With a flattering smile on his face, he bowed deeply towards Gu Yuan. In his heart, a decision has been made. Be sure to hug the thigh of the man in front of you. Brother, don't worry. Oh no, boss, don't worry. I will definitely take care of the train for the boss, and if anything happens, I will come to see you. Chapter 124, Part 1. Weird flattery towards Roshan. Gu Yuan was not surprised. The reverence for powerful existence is the law rooted in the heart of every creature. Nothing could be more normal. He took Li Neza back to the mythical space. He took out the carefully crafted copper coin sword again. He remembered a clue he got a long time ago. In the pawn shop before, that soldier Wei once said, "These ghost copper coins are not just cursed props used to spy on the secrets of heaven. It is a kind of guidance in the dark. If you have collected enough ghost coins, you can use them as props to find the location of the Sea of Disillusionment. Now that I have this copper coin sword, there are a total of 108 ghost copper coins. It should be enough, right?" After pondering for a while, he directly operated the strange calendar area. A special connection has been established with the 108 ghost copper coins. All the ghost copper coins vibrated slightly and made a shrill cry. An illusory scene immediately unfolded in front of Gu Yuan. It was a vast and boundless black deep sea, with no end in sight, as if it was endless, covering the entire world. The turbulent waves are endless, bringing out a terrible roar, shaking the consciousness and shaking the source. It seems that there are countless terrifying and weird things lurking in the deep sea, waiting to choose someone to devour. Even if you look at this mysterious deep sea one more time, you will feel dizzy, as if your entire soul will be snatched away by this strange deep sea. 090 This? It is that extremely terrifying sea of disillusionment. It is also the place where the throne of deception is lost. This illusion only lasted for a moment. It just disappears. Gu Yuan was thoughtful. He could feel that in his mind, there was a vaguely wonderful coordinate. It seems to be indicating the location of the Sea of Disillusionment to himself. According to this coordinate, you can see the real Sea of Disillusionment. Huh, what's wrong with you? Gu Yuan withdrew his mind, and suddenly found that the Roshan next to him was strange, and his expression seemed to be a little wrong. With strange eyes, Roshan stared blankly at the place where the phantom of the Sea of Disillusionment existed just now, feeling a little lost. It was only after hearing Gu Yuan's question that he came back to his senses. His complexion became extremely complicated. After hesitating for a moment, he hissed, "Boss, that just now couldn't be the Sea of Disillusionment?" Gu Yuan glanced at him, gently nodded. He was a little surprised. It's just a fleeting illusion. Roshan is so weird that he can even recognize it? From this meaning, it seems that he knows some information related to the Sea of Disillusionment? What do you know? Tell me. Roshan's weirdness had already made up his mind. You must find a way to hold Gu Yuan's thigh tightly. Right now, since Gu Yuan asked, he didn't hide anything, and just said everything he knew in one go. It's complicated. I've only heard some cryptic news. The Sea of Disillusionment exists somewhere on the other side, and it is a very terrifying forbidden zone. The degree of danger there is even stronger than the gray outside the train. Gu Yuan frowned slightly. He has personally experienced the danger of gray. That terrifying power of corruption has an extremely terrifying power of erosion. Even though his current strength has become quite powerful, it is enough to easily kill any 9-star strange creature. But if there is no guardian of the treacherous train and the brilliant robe, he definitely can't fight gray for long. It will definitely be completely eroded, and like those fallen creatures, it will be reduced to a walking dead living in gray. And the Sea of Disillusionment is actually more terrifying than this piece of gray. If you want to go to the Sea of Disillusionment, the biggest problem is navigating the sea. The sea water in the Sea of Disillusionment is very special, and ordinary materials will shatter at the moment of contact. Even weird things can't effectively block the force zone of sea water. So, brother, if you really want to go, you must first find the right materials to build a ship, otherwise you will just die there. As for what kind of thing can resist the influence of the Sea of Disillusionment, then I don't know. I don't even know what exists in the Sea of Disillusionment. Roshan added with a strange hiss. Gu Yuan nodded. There was also a serious look in his eyes. This information is very important. In order to explore the Sea of Disillusionment later, he must prepare early. Immediately, he thought of the sneaky army under his feet. Perhaps the trick train can be used. Since it can open up space and drive in the gray, it should also be able to advance in the Sea of Disillusionment. However, the consumption of calling the treacherous train for a long time is too great, and I can't afford it now. If you want to reach the level of sailing on the sea, it will take a year of the monkey. This can only be used as an alternative plan when we have no choice, but to find a way to build a ship is the right way. After a little thought, Gu Yuan directly rejected the option of the trick train. Start thinking about other possible paths. Fortunately, I control the dream world, and one of the dream spaces is the reflection of the Sea of Disillusionment. The biggest advantage of the dream world is that it is real, and it can reflect reality to a great extent. I can use it there to test what exactly can resist the influence of the seawater in the dream world. Speaking of which, I almost forgot that in the dream world, I'm still conducting a brand new experiment. Think here. Gu Yuan's heart skipped a beat. Consciousness sank directly into the dream world. In a certain dream space, the dream puppet is faithfully carrying out Gu Yuan's orders. He is trying his best to control the gray that Gu Yuan sent in before, but it keeps failing. At the moment of contact, the gray power can easily destroy the body of the dream doll. Then, driven by the rules of the dream world, he was born again. Try touching gray in another way. So back and forth, perseverance, tireless. This is the dream doll. The greatest meaning of his existence is to fulfill Gu Yuan's various orders. Gu Yuan's thoughts moved slightly. During this period of time, the attempts made by the dream puppet all turned into concrete information and poured into his consciousness. The eternal brain began to function again. With a certain unimaginable frequency, tens of millions of calculations and analyses were performed in an instant. Have to say, the dream simulator itself is also an excellent choice for writing eternal collocations. Although the eternal brain is powerful, but the limitations are also obvious. Of course, he can bless Gu Yuan, give Gu Yuan an extraordinary wisdom buff. But this kind of blessing is also based on various information inputs. It is a comprehensive analysis of various intelligence clues. It is not possible to deduce the optimal solution for Gu Yuan to control this ray of gray power out of thin air. And if Gu Yuan goes into battle in person and fuses this strand of gray power, it is likely to bring great danger to himself. But the existence of the dream simulator perfectly avoids this from happening. Chapter 124, Part 2. The dream puppet is the best toolman to try instead of Gu Yuan and provide enough data and clue support for the analysis of the eternal brain. Soon, an attempt on the dream doll. The eternal brain analyzed the pros and cons, discarded the chaff and kept the chaff, and sorted out a newer and more complete plan. Without hesitation, Gu Yuan directly transmitted the information to the dreaming puppet with a thought. For Gu Yuan's order, the dream puppet is unconditionally enforced. He stood there blankly for a moment, as if he was understanding the specific meaning of Gu Yuan's order. Then he stepped forward stiffly and once again started to contact the gray. And the surprise is, this time, he was not directly strangled by the gray power at the moment of contact. That kind of gray power wrapped around his fingertips like an obedient pet, acting like a baby to its master. But the good times didn't last long. Just less than 10 back and forth. This gray color showed its ferocious fangs again, directly destroying the body of the dreaming puppet. Gu Yuan is not depressed. Even the avatar of the nameless person is lost in this terrible gray. Even the thread of faith will be stripped by this gray. How can it be so easy to find a way to control him? It doesn't matter if you fail, just come again. Gu Yuan spoke calmly. The eternal brain is running fast. Summarize the problematic points in the wave of attempts just now, and make overall corrections again. The dream puppet began to try again. In this way, amid repeated failures, more and more perfect plans were formed. The gray streak remained on the dream doll for longer and longer. Finally, in a new attempt, that streak of gray successfully merged into the body of the dreaming puppet. The dreaming puppet raised its hand, and the gray line moved around between his 5 fingers with incomparable flexibility. A terrifying and strange fluctuation pervaded the air. A large stretch of weird residential houses blocked in front of the dreaming puppet, all turned gray, as if all the colors had been erased, appearing dark and dilapidated. The weirdness hidden in the private house was wiped out of consciousness in an instant and reduced to a depraved weird slave. This is the power of corruption. The dream puppet has controlled this gray to a certain extent. Successful. Gu Yuan's eyes moved. This is an extremely exciting signal. You know, what that gray line represents is the daunting power of corruption. Can make everything rotten, even if it is stronger than the supreme terrifying existence like the King of Sly. It's just a sideball, using gray to peel off the thread of faith. Can't fully control the power of this gray. Let gray fight for him. And now, standing on the shoulders of King Sly, Gu Yuan managed to go one step further. Found a way to harness gray. Of course, this is also because of the close cooperation between the dreaming doll and the eternal brain. Otherwise, it would be extremely difficult to find a suitable method. Do the math. I have already mastered quite a lot of power. The introduction of evil and impermanence, the insight and judgment of Nie Yan Luo, the transformation and killing of Heiwu 2.8, the consciousness of evil golden cicadas, the time of demon Yang Jian, and the space of cruel Neza, corruption of tentacle evil gods, annihilation and pollution of gods, penetration of shadow evil gods, manipulation of dark corpses. There are also the deconstruction of the papermaker, the plunder of the bloody gloves, the slash of the Chong Sam girl, the divination of the ghost copper coin itself, and the power of faith symbolized by the silk thread of faith. Add to that the depravity that this shade of gray symbolizes. Counting all the miscellaneous things, there are already nearly 20 different powers. Gu Yuan muttered to himself. Take a brief look at your current situation. Can't help but also secretly startled. It is extremely difficult for ordinary people to be able to control a kind of power. If you can get away with it, you should be thankful. And now, Gu Yuan has directly mastered nearly 20 kinds of powers. What kind of scary number is this? And as Gu Yuan grows, this number will definitely continue to rise. 30, 50, 100, 500, even 3,000 strange avenues. Only Gu Yuan can walk this path of supreme glory. This is all because of the power of the supreme power of the dark myth. Gu Yuan can obtain new powers by creating new myths and weirdnesses. It is also possible to steal the abilities of the evil gods by devouring those items with the abilities of the evil gods. I'm really looking forward to that day, Gu Yuan muttered to himself. Chapter 125, Part 1. Gu Yuan turned his head and looked at the dream doll. A command consciousness came out. The dream puppet didn't hesitate. Immediately raised his hand. He directly removed the strand of gray that he was driving and sent that strand of gray to Gu Yuan. Gu Yuan took a deep breath, recalling the complete method of controlling gray again. The chaotic qi in the body escaped and circulated around the fingers in a certain way. He stretched out his fingers extremely cautiously and touched the strand of gray. There was a strange buzzing sound. This extremely frightening strand of gray did not attack Gu Yuan, but wound up along his fingers. Little by little, it merged with the chaotic air. Gu Yuan could already feel the strange power emanating from the gray. Evil, icy, and cold, like a terrifying demon, trying every means to lure Gu Yuan to the eternal sinking. Fallen power, fear to the extreme. I still have to ensure the purity of the chaotic gas, and it should not be mixed with too many abnormal factors. I can't let this strand of gray wander in my body. It's better to suppress it in a specific area. In this way, I can mobilize the power of corruption at will, and this will not be affected by too much power of corruption. Gu Yuan muttered to himself. Quickly analyze and make decisions. Next moment, this frightening gray was forcibly suppressed by Gu Yuan in his fingers, docile and obedient, like a puppy that has been completely tamed. This power of corruption is not particularly strong, and it is far from reaching my carrying limit. Maybe 21. Come back and be a little more crazy. Gu Yuan calculated briefly. Then, with a thought, he left the dream space. In the moment of returning to reality, he directly raised his hand, opened the closed car door, and stared coldly at the boiling gray in the distance. Roshan stood beside him strangely. Seeing this, I couldn't help but my heart tightened, and my spirit tensed up again. In the eyes of the countless heads, there is a strong expression of tension. Have to say, Gu Yuan's thighs are not so huggable. If you don't have a good heart, you can't stand it at all. This guy is really crazy. What on earth is he trying to do? Gu Yuan raised his hand leisurely. The 5 fingers moved slightly, pinching out the fingering formula learned from the King of Lu. Immediately there was a wisp of gray, which was intercepted by the row. Then it was concocted by Gu Yuan in the same way, controlled by that specific finger. Nest grass? Roshan stared strangely and couldn't help but swear. The whole thing is completely dumbfounded. What did he see intercept the gray and blend into itself? This big guy. Is he picking up this piece of gray wool? How could he do such a ridiculous thing? And more importantly, he actually succeeded, did not take any damage, and managed to control this gray power? The boss is the boss after all. This is too fierce. Roshan swallowed a mouthful of saliva with some difficulty, his voice hoarse, and he muttered to himself in a very low voice. He knows it. Don't look at Gu Yuan's understatement and coherent actions, but the degree of danger in the process is not enough for outsiders to understand. That kind of gray, only in front of Gu Yuan, the group will be so docile. But if other people want to touch it, then this gray color will instantly take off the harmless mask of humans and animals, revealing ferocious fangs, tearing all living beings to pieces. Gu Yuan didn't care about Roshan's strange exclamation. He just cared about himself, frantically plundering the gray power zone. One strand after another. Inexhaustible, inexhaustible. It's as if Gu Yuan's appetite is so big that he can never satisfy it. Until a long time later, that finger of Gu Yuan has completely turned into a terrifying ashes. He gave up with some reluctance. Almost, this is already my limit level. If there are more, it will be a bit powerless to maintain the balance of suppression. In the case of having an eternal brain, Gu Yuan has a very clear and rational understanding of his physical limits. When it's time to expand, he will expand without hesitation. But when it's time to stop, he will never be greedy. Just at this time, the treacherous train has experienced a very obvious deceleration. The horn sounded spontaneously without anyone touching it, emitting a sharp, piercing sound, hoarse and shrill. The wheels rub against the void, bursting out dazzling sparks. Through the car window, one can see that the rich gray color is gradually fading away, a little bit close to disappearing. The outline of the building can already be vaguely seen. This time, it's not an emergency stop, but it's time to arrive. Terminal. The other side. Boss, we'll be here soon. Roshan felt strangely agitated and spoke in a deep voice. Finally reached. Along the way, he experienced too many shocking things, which made him exhausted physically and mentally. Seeing the shadow on the other side now, he breathed a sigh of relief, and the heart that had been hanging in midair finally fell down. Gu Yuan hummed, feeling a little excited too. This is the other side. It's where he's always wanted to be. Too many mysteries gather here. Ghost Suzhin, red human skin paper, woman in plain clothes, paper maker. These mysterious existences are all suspected to be inextricably linked with the other side. Perhaps here, he can solve the doubts in his heart and even discover the core secrets hidden in the horror game. But before heading to the other side, Gu Yuan has other things he wants to do. He turned his eyes slowly, looked at the carriage ahead, and said indifferently, "Before you said that the treacherous train has special rules, and the number of passengers cannot be too small, otherwise there is a risk of collapse and disintegration. But now that we have reached the terminal, we don't have to worry about this rule anymore, do we?" Heard the words. Roshan's heart skipped a beat. From Gu Yuan's understated words, he heard the extremely creepy killing intent. He spoke tremblingly. "Of course not. That's good." The voice did not fall. Gu Yuan had already taken a step forward, and the raging chaotic air filled the air, instantly covering the entire carriage of the treacherous train. His purpose is simple. That is to slaughter all the passengers on the train. To know, those who can board the treacherous train count as one, and they are all extremely fierce and violent strange creatures. Their terror is extremely high. The lowest is 7-star top level, most of them are 8-star, and there are even very few 9-star juniors. Moreover, they are different from the fallen creatures in the gray. They are the most orthodox weird. What does that mean? Meaning they're all advanced spooky puzzles walking one by one. On Gu Yuan's side, only Imo Yangjian and Li Neza are weird, and the level of terror has been raised to the 9-star level. The 4 gods, evil impermanence, Nie Yan Luo, black Wukong, and Xie Jinshan, are still stuck in the 8-star intermediate level. If all these weird passengers are harvested, the huge resources obtained may be able to make all the mythical weirdness break through to 9 stars. For Gu Yuan, this is an extremely huge improvement in overall strength. A strange place like the other side may be full of huge dangers. The stronger the strength, the more chances of survival will naturally be. Chapter 125, Part 2. And those weird passengers in the carriage became terrified in an instant. They looked at each other, their eyes full of panic, but can be promoted to their level. The level of intelligence has also become very high. After a brief panic, a strange creature responded. A strange creature holding a wine jar. Its intestines were pierced, and its internal organs leaked all over the place. It had fierce eyes and let out a fierce roar. This chaotic atmosphere, I have the impression that it is that human being. He's going to attack us. Damn it. If I knew this, I should have tried everything I could to press him to death when he first got into the car. Come with me. Let's go up together and kill this lunatic. While roaring, he lifted up the dilapidated wine jar, and streams of blood-red wine poured out of the jar and fell into his mouth. The internal organs dripping on the ground seemed to come alive suddenly. Can't help winding and shaking, seeping forward. The strange aura of the 9-star elementary school erupted in an extremely terrifying manner. The other weird passengers also had fierce looks in their eyes, and they had desperate plans. The incomparably loud and terrifying strange power filled the entire carriage of the strange train in the blink of an eye. This is an unprecedented passenger riot. 280 in the face of the threat of death. All the weird passengers are united. Roshan watched strangely from a distance, feeling a burst of fear. Even if he is the sheriff of the treacherous train. But I have never experienced such a horrible thing. Such a terrible riot. Who the hell should work and live? But Yuan has a calm face and indifferent eyes. I don't care at all. In his view, this is a useless resistance. It's a good time to come. Let's try my latest ability with you. He muttered to himself and raised his hand gently. More specifically, what he raised was the finger that had turned into pure dead gray. The horrible depraved breath rose up and condensed into a thread. From a long distance, point directly. That 9-star low-level winecrafty froze for a moment. There was a look of unbelievable horror in his eyes. His entrails, his body, the wine jar in his hand. All the colors faded away in an instant. Infected by the power of corruption, it turned into pure gray. While fading, life is fading rapidly. Almost in the blink of an eye, he just fell to the ground. His flesh and blood withered, and he died suddenly. A dignified 9-star elementary school monster was instantly killed by Yuan. And the weird one who stood closer was also affected by the fish in the pond, fading and dying at a speed visible to the naked eye. According to a rough estimate, at least 38-star monsters died under the chain reaction of the fallen power this time. How terrifying! How shocking! This is Yuan's dominance. The other weird passengers watched this scene closely. There was a burst of shock and chills all over the body. But they all understand that at this time, there is no second way to go. If you don't kill Yuan, they are all cunning, one counts as one, and all of them must die. Only by fighting with Yuan can there be a last chance. All of a sudden, endless strange attacks overwhelmed the sky and covered the sky. Passing through the carriages, evil wolves rushed towards them. The strange air rolled and oscillated, roaring endlessly. Chapter 126, Part 1. Because the number of spooky passengers is too much. There are hundreds of people. At the same time, the strength of the strange attack has reached an extremely terrifying level. It makes Roshan feel a little chilly. He took a step back subconsciously, not daring to face such an extremely violent attack. But Yuan didn't dodge or dodge at all, just with an indifferent smile on his face. Linez's incomparably cruel and tyrannical figure appeared. He smiled maniacally, watching the strange attack all over the sky. The countless lotus imprints on his body simultaneously emit a strange cold light. Next moment, all the strange attacks disappeared in an instant and appeared outside the strange train, causing waves of tumbling gray air to explode. He used his own space power to forcibly transfer all the forces of these strange attacks. This is an almost unsolvable force. Unless the strength of the strange power can suppress Linez's space transfer power in an instant. Otherwise, it would be impossible to break the boundary and pose any threat to Fangneza and Yuan behind him. For a while, an indescribable sense of despair rose in the hearts of many strange passengers. What the hell? What to fight with? Yuan pointed casually. Dozens of them were about to die, and their attacks with all their strength couldn't even touch the hem of Yuan's clothes. This is a purely crushing battle. Gu Yuan calmly raised his hand. He has tested the power of the fallen powers. Not interested in making a move right now. Leave the rest to Lineza. Lineza gave a strange laugh. The fierce light in the eyes has become unprecedentedly violent. The eyes of the two human heads under their feet also had a chilling cold light. Then, they all flew crazily at an unprecedented speed. There are ripples spreading in the air. The terrifying space power erupts again. Every strange passenger felt an extremely heavy history. There is an invisible force that separates them from each other. It looks like they're all standing together. But in fact, they are already divided into hundreds of completely different spaces. This is another manifestation of spatial power. Spatial separation. The weird passengers were extremely panicked, slapping the invisible space barrier in front of them frantically, bursting out bursts of ear-piercing roars. Lineza looked at him coldly. The corners of his mouth were grinning, and his smile looked extremely ferocious. He gently raised his hand, spread out his 5 slender fingers, moved them suddenly, and clenched them into fists. Then the hundreds of independent small spaces in front of them were all affected, and some kind of extremely terrible space collapse occurred. Just click. Those hundreds of weird passengers were all crushed by the shattered space, bursting apart at the same time, turning into a mass of lifeless flesh and blood. The incomparably strong smell of blood permeated wantonly in the train. There are only pieces of strange jigsaw puzzles shining with strange luster, rising from these meat sauces, floating in the air. Group off. Lineza slaughtered the entire train perfectly with ease. Except for Gu Yuan, Lineza, and the 2 policemen, Roshan Wei and Red Hair Wei, there is no one alive on the huge train. Roshan kept silent like a cicada in a strange way. I feel a little sad in my heart. The red hair was so weird that it trembled all over, and even fainted from fright. He never thought that someone could slaughter a whole car of high-level weird creatures so easily. This has completely subverted his old cognition. Gu Yuan nodded slightly. His eyes were full of admiration. Lineza's control over the power of space, as well as his proficiency in using it, has reached a certain level of proficiency. Immediately afterwards, Lineza hooked his hands indifferently. The weird jigsaw puzzles scattered all over the ground were all manipulated by some kind of strange space force, and they flickered directly in front of Gu Yuan. Arranged neatly, it is like a grand exhibition. For a 7-star weird thing, there must be 3 things. There are a total of 378 8-star weird objects. There are 4 9-star strange things in total. There's even a rankless spooky thing. What a huge gain is this. It is many times greater than the income from looting the pawn shop before. Gu Yuan gently raised his hand. Except for that levelless weird thing. All other weird things are classified according to their characteristics. They were sent to the 4 mythical beings of evil impermanence, Nie Yan Luo, Wukong, and Xiejin Shan respectively, for them to absorb and absorb. With the support of such huge resources, the horror level of the 4 of them, just as Gu Yuan expected, began to rise rapidly, from 8-star intermediate to 8-star advanced, and then to 8-star top. In just the blink of an eye, all of them began to attack the 9-star elementary school. Gu Yuan didn't pay too much attention to this process and focused more on the levelless weird thing. The appearance of this thing was somewhat unexpected. It should have been accidentally obtained by a strange creature and carried with it. But it's all cheaper for him now. The relevant introduction panel appeared in front of Gu Yuan. Worn-out dictionary. Grade. Special item. No grade. Introduction. This is an ancient and mysterious dictionary book compiled by the last linguist, which contains some kind of wonderful power. Perhaps, some things you don't understand can be answered by him. But please remember that any answer is not without cost. Gu Yuan glanced at it and couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. These introductions may seem simple, but they actually contain a huge amount of information. Dictionary book? Compiled by the last linguist? Gu Yuan muttered to himself. He couldn't help but take another look at the quaint silver ring in his hand. According to the horror game, this silver ring is the pinnacle work created by the last goldsmith. Before, in the diary, the papermaker also mentioned that he is the last papermaker in the world. Judging from the current clues, papermakers, goldsmiths, and linguists should all be some kind of special occupation inheritance in the strange world. Why are these inheritances broken? What do they mean? The papermaker will be targeted by the evil god. Does it have something to do with this so-called professional inheritance? Gu Yuan counted these clues. I vaguely felt as if I had discovered something extremely important. But because of the lack of some special core information, These clues cannot be used at all. He pondered for a moment, but still couldn't figure it out. Not too tangled up. Instead, start working on this well-worn dictionary. The cover of the dictionary is in tatters, as if it has been corroded and tempered by countless years. The inside is blank, without any writing. Can he answer something I don't understand? Since it's a dictionary, it should be used for translation, right? Gu Yuan's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but think of many mysterious runes he had seen before. Those runes looked like some kind of writing, but he couldn't understand them at all. Perhaps you can get more information from this dictionary. He pondered for a while. Gu Yuan simply bent his fingers and began to sketch on the dictionary with his bare hands. Chapter 126, Part 2. Strange to say, on the blank page, with the movement of Gu Yuan's fingertips, a dark and distorted mark appeared. Soon, a sketch in the text was completed. That was the weird rune that appeared on the identity badge of the driver of the weird train. Gu Yuan watched with some expectation, but there was no new response from the dictionary. No more changes? Is it because I didn't pay enough? Gu Yuan was slightly taken aback. Then he reacted immediately. He tentatively scratched his finger and spilled a wisp of blood on the dictionary. All the blood disappeared in an instant and completely seeped into the paper. It's as if inside the dictionary, there is an extremely terrifying ghost hiding, greedily devouring the blood. At the same time, more words emerged on the page, twisted and scribbled, but it's totally visible. This is human writing. Manage. Tear off this page and ignite it. You can temporarily gain the power to stop the treacherous train, and the effective period is 1 second. Gu Yuan was slightly taken aback. Immediately a shock. What did he see? The role of this dilapidated dictionary is even more terrifying than he expected. Not only translated the mysterious runes, it even stole the power of that mysterious rune to a certain extent. Originally, let the train stop. This is the ability of the train driver, but tore off the pages of the book and ignited it, and you can temporarily steal that ability as your own. Although it can only stop the treacherous train for a second, it is already scary enough. The potential of Shabby Dictionary has been amply proven. If used properly, this will be an extremely terrifying killer. Can create such a strange thing. The power of that linguist may have reached an unimaginable level. The real words can't be written. Presumably, it is another indescribable but lofty figure. The authority represented by the train driver's identity mark is of little significance. The transforming power of the toy castle is more important. I don't know if this dilapidated dictionary can also steal that transformation power. Gu Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly. Can't help but think of the toy castle that has collapsed. The power of the castle is extremely unique. You can, Nuo Lihao, control toy soldiers, arrange special rune formations, and forcibly suppress and knead strange creatures into cursed props. At that time, Gu Yuan had already realized that the rune formation was unusual, and he has already firmly remembered the rune formation in the mind of the king. Don't hesitate, just do it. He raised his hand to erase the previous handwriting. Then he pointed at the rune that arranged the toy soldiers, depicting the doctor. Tick, accompanied by a stream of blood dripping. The new hideous text also appeared. Seal up. Tear off this book page and ignite it. You can turn something into a cursed item, but only limited to 9-star terror level and below. Gu Yuan looked at this line of text. Can't help being ecstatic in my heart. His guess has really come true. In this way, although the toy castle has been destroyed, but Gu Yuan also indirectly grasped the power of transformation. In the future, many fancy things can be forcibly removed and turned into cursed props to keep by your side. In the long run, this will have an inestimable effect on improving Gu Yuan's strength. And then, the paper shook again, and a new line of text emerged. There is no limit to the transformation power. If you can get more and more advanced blood, this power of transformation can go up. A chilly aura enveloped the words. It's as if there is a terrible devil tempting Gu Yuan and making a deeper deal with him. Chapter 127, Part 1. Want more blood? Gu Yuan looked at the words derived from the dictionary, narrowed his eyes slightly, and there was a bit of sharpness in his eyes. He instinctively felt that this dictionary was abnormal and might have its own plot. If you keep giving him blood, something unusual might happen. But after a short thought, Gu Yuan put this worry behind him. But in this weird world, are there fewer scary things? Are there still few weird creatures holding conspiracy? So what if the dictionary has a plot? It's nothing more than a different kind of partnership. At least for the time being, maintaining this cooperative relationship is beneficial to Gu Yuan and not harmful at all. Gu Yuan provides him with blood, and the dictionary provides Gu Yuan with the power to translate runes and plagiarize them. If one day, the existence of the dictionary threatens the safety of Gu Yuan, then he will draw out the copper coin sword without hesitation and chop the dictionary into pieces. Think here. Gu Yuan didn't have any hesitation anymore. As he raised his hand, the chaotic energy swaggered. On the ground, those strange flesh and blood that Qing Neza crushed with space collapse were all forcibly ingested by him. Then, like the Yangtze River, it poured down towards the dictionary. This dilapidated dictionary is also open to anyone who comes. All the blood was swallowed up by him in an instant. On the paper, not even a speck of extra blood remained. It's just that the text above has quietly changed. Not enough. More blood. More advanced blood. Between the lines, there is a kind of spontaneous desire. It's like a greedy and terrifying devil. Gu Yuan's expression was indifferent. He directly closed the dilapidated dictionary and put it away in an extremely appropriate manner. Hang out this dictionary first. He wants to make the dictionary understand. When to feed the blood, he has the final say. In this partnership, he must occupy absolute dominance. At this time, evil impermanence, Nie Yan Luo, Black Wukong, Xie Shan and other mythical beings are weird, and they have absorbed all the weird things. Its level of horror has directly crossed a large realm and has been promoted to that terrifying 9-star elementary school. So far, the 6 myths are weird, and all of them have been promoted to 9 stars. Gu Yuan's overall strength has quietly improved again, taking a big step forward. At the same time, the movement of the treacherous train has completely stopped. All the train doors are opening at the same time. The extremely hoarse and cold radio sound exploded in the carriage, pulsating back and forth endlessly. Dear passengers, the terminal has arrived. All passengers please get off. I wish every passenger can find what they want on the other side. Hear this familiar broadcast. Roshan felt a little strange. Those hundreds of weird passengers had a simple desire to seek life sublimation on the other side. After a lot of hard work, I got a ticket and boarded the treacherous train. But in the end, they didn't even touch the edge of the other side, and they all became the souls of Gu Yuan's people, sitting on the same trick train as Gu Yuan. This is their greatest misfortune. Gu Yuan tidied his clothes a little and said casually, I'm leaving, you take care of the trick train for me. If something goes wrong, I will kill you next time we meet. In the calm words, there is an irresistible brilliance of heavenly power, filled with an indescribably huge, murderous intent. Because of Li Nez's relationship, the trick train is now Gu Yuan's private property. He attaches great importance to this horror train that can move freely in the gray. The reason why the entire train was slaughtered, leaving only 2 policemen, Roshan Weird and Red-Haired Weird, was nothing more than to maintain the old operating rules of the weird train. This is what it means for the 2 of them to survive. Hearing this, Roshan couldn't help shivering violently due to the strangeness. He didn't dare to neglect, and hurriedly nodded in agreement. Boss, don't worry, I will definitely do my best to take good care of Wei Lai Jun. Gu Yuan nodded. Immediately, without any hesitation, he took a big step and got out of this treacherous train. All in all, this treacherous train journey was actually 7 or 8 hours long. But compared with before getting in the car, Gu Yuan's strength has changed drastically. Here, he got too many benefits. When he first got into the car, even if it was an ordinary 9-star junior monster, Gu Yuan had to put up 120,000 points of energy and deal with it with extreme caution. But now, let alone a 9-star junior. Even if it is a 10-star junior, Gu Yuan has the confidence to fight against it. In the 9-star field, he can already kill without any scruples. Is this the other shore? Gu Yuan muttered to himself. He can feel it. There seems to be a different atmosphere here than in the real world. Unknowingly, this breath seeped into the body along the pores, wandering between every inch of skin and flesh, as if quietly completing some special rules. His level of terror has not increased, but the essence of the strange power seems to be indistinctly strengthened. At the first moment when stepping into the other side, the so-called sublimation of life has already begun. No wonder there are so many weird things. I want to come to the other shore even after breaking my head. This place is indeed very special. Gu Yuan seriously felt this strange sense of sublimation for a while. Then he raised his head and looked forward. It seems that this is a city with countless tall buildings row upon row, and it seems that it was once very prosperous. But now, this city has been completely shrouded in terrifying darkness. There is no one on the road, and it is filled with an extremely depressing atmosphere. Looking at it from a distance, It makes people feel a little suffocated. In this deep darkness, there seems to be something extremely terrifying lurking, etc. Why does this city feel so familiar to me? Gu Yuan stared from a distance, frowning. There was a strong look of surprise, kbaff, and suspicion in his eyes. The eternal brain is running at a terrifying speed. Many scattered impressions surged in his mind. He suddenly realized an extremely terrifying possibility. No way. He hesitated a little. Gu Yuan's eyes turned cold. Chaos chi spread out frantically. Supporting him directly into the sky, he stood in the incomparably dark sky. He is condescending, overlooking this dark and terrifying city. From high up, the view is unobstructed. The panorama of the whole city came into Gu Yuan's eyes. As Gu Yuan guessed before, he saw many familiar sights. Drum Tower Theater, Fengqing No. 3 Primary School, Tongda Hotel, Breeze View. There is also the Jin Yuan apartment, which is surrounded by 18 places of great evil. All the layout and structure are exactly the same as the heavy city in the real world. An extremely unbelievable, yet blatantly undeniable truth looms in front of you. The other side, or a part of the other side, will be a replica of Fengqing. How could this be? Gu Yuan couldn't believe it. There seemed to be boundless and monstrous waves rushing and rolling in my heart. Even though he had witnessed it with his own eyes, he was still extremely shocked. This situation far exceeded his expectations. He had guessed the appearance of the other side countless times. Chapter 127, Part 2. But I never expected that the other shore would appear in front of me in this form. Going around in a big circle, he finally returned to his hometown? What special secret is hidden in Fengqing? Why is there such a huge connection between Fengqing and the other shore? Where is the problem? Call. Gu Yuan took a deep breath, forcibly suppressing the shock in my heart. His eternal brain is running fast, observing various details. It didn't take long to see the difference. No, it's not a complete replica. There are still differences. The orientation of the whole city is different from Fengqing in the real world. It happens to be in an upside-down state. The buildings that were originally on the west side of the city now appear on the east side. The river that was originally in the north is now flowing in the south of the city. It's not like a remake. Instead, it's more like reflection. Gu Yuan muttered to himself. Suddenly, an extremely crazy and terrifying idea came to mind. Could it be that the horror game is divided into two structures, the shallow layer and the inner layer, with a lake-like layer between the fields? The real world is regarded as the shallow layer, and the other world is regarded as the deep layer. The deep world is completely a reflection of the shallow world. But soon, Gu Yuan immediately shook his head, denying his own thoughts. He turned his head and looked in one direction. There is the direction of the Sea of Disillusionment, guided by the ghost copper coin. In reality, there is no great ominous place related to the Sea of Disillusionment. At the same time, he moved his wrist, and in his palm, the black paper map from the papermaker also appeared in front of him. The ravines on the map outline a continuous mountain range. There is no corresponding area for this kind of place in the real world. So, this mapping is not for the entire real world. It should only exist in Fengqing. Fengqing is the most special place. Gu Yuan sorted out his thoughts, turned his mind, and quickly came to a bold conclusion. I see. Fengqing is a node, the intersection of the other world and the real world. That's why there are many abnormal phenomena in Fengqing, such as the sudden emergence of the 18 fierce places, the erosion of evil gods, and the advent of strange dreams. Another example, the only supreme power dark myth that I have ever gotten. The acquisition of this kind of power may not be an accident, but some kind of inevitability. While thinking, Gu Yuan's eyes turned slowly, looking in the direction of Jin Yuan apartment. There is his birth point in the horror game. In Fengqing in the real world, Jin Yuan apartment is not a very dangerous place. Although there are occasional strange haunts, it is still very safe overall. But in the other world, the situation is completely different. You can read more daily new novels on fictionzone.net. Both sites share the same login details, so you don't need to sign up again. Chapter 128, Part 1. Gu Yuan looked from a distance. His eyes were full of bloodshot eyes with deep and mysterious runes. This is the primordial pupil capable of breaking through all illusions and seeing the truth of all things. Under this view, any strange aura is not enough to stop Gu Yuan's investigation. The appearance of Jin Yuan apartment appeared in front of him very easily. Now, The entire Yuan apartment was filled with a terrible and strange aura. Countless mysterious and terrifying patterns are densely imprinted on the outer walls of this building. The terrifying and strange luster that makes one's heart tremble, flowing on it, reflecting each other's brilliance, seems to convey the most primitive and ancient secret. This is like a demon nest, as if it is breeding some terrifying demons. It is also like a well-arranged altar, where some extremely terrifying miracles are brewing. Compared with this Yuan apartment, the other fierce places are all dwarfed in terms of their fierceness, and they are not even worthy of carrying shoes. Drum Tower Theater, Fengcheng No. 3 Primary School, King Fengwen, Tongda Hotel. There are a total of 18 evil places surrounding the Yuan apartment, as if a group of evil spirits are paying homage to the Supreme Emperor. Sure enough, as I thought, Yuan apartment is not a good place. On the contrary, it is more terrifying than other evil places. It has already broken away from the scope of the place of great crime, and can be regarded as a place of great crime. It's hard to imagine that in the real world, I actually live there. Because of this, in fact, when horror games come to reality, I am destined to obtain the supreme power of dark mythology. This is what I deserve. It's just that it is still uncertain whether this weird and special layout is a spontaneous evolution of horror games, or whether there are some terrible big figures secretly behind the scenes manipulate. Yuan muttered to himself. There are countless turbulent waves in my heart. Even though I had guessed it long ago, I will still be shocked when I witness it with my own eyes. He understood that he had unknowingly been involved in an extremely terrifying event. This matter is directly related to the essence of horror games, and even to the end of countless worlds and endless universes. Perhaps, El Nato, woman in plain clothes, girl in Chong Sam, king of deceits are supremely terrifying. And the indescribable ones such as Tentacle Cthulhu, Red Moon Cthulhu, and Shadow Cthulhu. They are all inextricably linked with this matter. He took another look at Yuan apartment. In Yuan's heart, a strange impulse surged suddenly and inexplicably. It was as if somewhere in the dark, there was a voice telling him, there is something special hidden in Yuan apartment, which can bring him huge benefits to a great extent. Let his terror strength be improved by leaps and bounds. Even promote the sublimation of the supreme authority of the dark myth. But at the same time, there is also an extremely terrifying warning sign surging in my heart. Inside the Yuan apartment, there is an unspeakable danger. If you step into it rashly, you may be killed. 211. With Yuan's current level, he can't set foot in it yet. Otherwise he will be eaten, and there will be no scum left. Now I can easily kill 9-star weird creatures. Even a 10-star junior is fearless. What's hidden there that makes me feel cold and my hair stand on end? Yuan muttered to himself. I feel a little incredible. My own birth point is actually a boss point in a sense, but he was always cautious. Now that the great horror has been foreseen, then he naturally wouldn't insist on snooping. Anyway, the Yuan apartment is right there, so I won't run away with long legs. It is still necessary to improve your own strength first, and then explore in the past, so that it will be more stable. And at this moment, the strange air not far away suddenly fluctuated without warning. Such subtle changes did not escape Yuan's perception. He frowned and immediately became vigilant. In a terrifying place like the other world, it is not surprising that any accidents occur. Next moment, a human head that had been completely decomposed, with only a trace of flesh hanging on the bone, suddenly appeared in front of Yuan. The horror level of this human head has already reached the 9-star intermediate level. He looked at Yuan sternly, his eyes filled with endless viciousness. Who allowed you to fly so high? An extremely vicious and fierce voice spit out from his mouth. A terrifying and strange attack rushed towards Yuan immediately, the same level of horror as the 9-star intermediate level. But the strange attack displayed by this strange head is obviously more terrifying than the strangeness of Roshan. It's even a bit like the 9-star senior Yuan encountered before. This is because the other shore has a special power that can promote the sublimation of life. Therefore, the strange creatures in the other world, at the same level, are more difficult and fierce than those in the real world. But, in Yuan's view, it's the same. With many cards in his hands, he is now a serious 5-star invincible. His eyes turned slightly cold. Immediately, he flipped his palm, and the copper coin sword appeared in his hand. According to the head is a fierce sword. The terrifying power contained in the copper coin sword erupted in an instant, splitting the head in half. This human head is completely shattered. The weird puzzle inside fell out. With quick eyes and quick hands, Yuan snatched the puzzle into his hands. With extremely wary eyes, he looked into the distance. When chopping up this weird human head, he felt a faint pulling force. That is, this human head is actually just a puppet being manipulated, instead of the Lord. This made Yuan's heart tremble. Turning a 9-star mid-level weird creature into a puppet is something that even the top-level 9-star cannot do. The manipulator hidden behind it must be 10-star weird, and the 10-star junior should not be able to stop it. It should be my arrogant behavior of flying in the sky that attracted the attention of this great terror. I'm new here, and I'm not familiar with the world on the other side. So I know what the hell is hidden here. There's no need to work hard with him, lest you be taken advantage of by other weirdos who are secretly watching. Yuan muttered to himself. A decision was made quickly. Stay away from the edge. Wait until you free up your hands later, and then clean up this terrifying and weird thing in the sky, and kill him completely. With this in mind, he immediately put away the chaotic energy and landed on the ground. The invisible locking power in the dark also disappeared, and at the same time, in front of Yuan, the bloody screen of the horror game emerged again. Asking for flowers. Congratulations, you have successfully reached the other side. Perhaps you have already discovered some secrets in this area and witnessed the real horror and horror. Remember? Before, you stole the authority of King Fengwen and chose to become the representative of King Fengwen. This is the path you choose yourself. The Lord of the Subscription is not eternal. You will have to go through the real trial after all. To become the real master of Qingfeng Temple? Or become a dry bone in Qingfeng Temple? Everything depends on your own efforts. Chapter 128, Part 2, Trial Mission, Start Now. Looking at these prompts, Yuan couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. Naturally, he will not forget the trial task on his back. It's kind of strange that he didn't trigger it before. Now I understand the reason. The view of the breeze in the real world and the view of the breeze in the other world are actually one and the same, and they are two forms of the view of the breeze. The former representative of Guan only had control over the reality of Qingfeng Guan, and only by becoming a true viewer. Only then can the view of the other side of the world be brought under control. 0. Therefore, this kind of real trial mission can only be triggered after reaching the other side of the world. Perhaps, the reason why the evil god chose to erode the view of Qingfeng is that its fundamental purpose is to use the view of Qingfeng as an anchor to touch the world on the other side. Yuan's heart twitched slightly, and a guess surged up. In front of him, the bloody screen flickered and changed. More words appeared in front of Yuan. King Fengwen Trial Mission. Mission Objective. Find the ancient scriptures in Qingfeng Temple within 12 hours. Mission Description. According to legend, in the view of Qingfeng, there is a strange ancient scripture book hidden, which is the scripture chant from the strange god. There are countless strange runes recorded on it, telling the truth of the world. You have to look for it with your heart, you have to read it with your heart, and don't go astray. Mission Success Reward. You will become the official viewer of Qingfeng Temple, gain complete control over Qingfeng Temple, and get random weird rewards. Punishment for mission failure. Maybe you will become a dead bone in Qingfeng Temple. Yuan hastily glanced at it. Thoughtful. This task is a time-limited task. 12 hours, looking for ancient scriptures. It doesn't sound too difficult, but Yuan is very clear. This kind of trial task is very important. It is absolutely impossible to release water. There must be some kind of hidden danger. I don't know what's going on at King Fengwen. Let's take a look. On the contrary, the last hint seems to have some hidden meaning. You have to look for it with your heart, you have to read it with your heart, and don't go astray? Is there any misleading situation? Yuan muttered to himself. Without enough clues, he couldn't find more clues. I can only go there and talk about it. The paper figurines are still sleeping, absorbing the chaotic energy of the mythical space, which has indeed brought them huge changes. That kind of strange evolution has not been completed yet. It seems that they are unreliable, so I can only stroll past by myself. Yuan glanced at the strange state of the paper figurine, and then took a big stride, walked on the dark and dead road, and headed towards Qingfeng Temple. Chapter 129, Part 1. Fengqing in the other world is even more eerie. The surroundings are full of ghosts, extremely depressing, and there is a creepy feeling of being peeped. Yuan kept walking and moved forward quickly. The eternal brain is extremely powerful, and the map of the entire Fengqing is firmly engraved on the brain by him. The chosen one is exactly the shortest route. He crossed the main road, turned around, and walked into a commercial street. It used to be very prosperous here, but now it is empty, desolate, and dilapidated. Almost all the shops have their doors wide open, and the inside is dark and deep, filled with a strange aura rushing towards us. Even stranger, obviously already so dilapidated. But at the door of every clothing store, there is a brand new model doll, and the clothes on her body are as clean as new, spotless. Moreover, these model dolls all present exactly the same posture. One hand hangs down, and the other hand is raised high, as if performing some kind of secret ceremony. Gu Yuan's eyes were serious. Skim over these models. What he can be sure of is that these model dolls have no life breath on their bodies, and they are not weird creatures. But since he showed such a secretive posture, there must be something strange behind it. There seems to be something wrong with this commercial street. However, the most important thing now is not 183 to track down the weirdness here, and to complete the trial task of the master of Qingfeng Temple first is the right way. Gu Yuan murmured, but didn't stop in his footsteps, still moving forward on its own. It doesn't matter what kind of mystery is hidden in the commercial street, as long as it doesn't offend Gu Yuan. He can open one eye and close one eye. A kind of eerie peace was maintained. In the blink of an eye, Gu Yuan had walked 2/3 of the commercial street. Nothing unusual happened, nor was he subjected to any sort of spooky attack. It seems that the strange creatures here have acquiesced in the existence and departure of Gu Yuan, etc. Gu Yuan frowned. His gaze was fixed ahead, but out of the corner of his eye, he was also paying attention to the movement behind him, the shops he passed by, the model dolls at the door. I don't know when, suddenly, disappeared. Everything was silent, even hiding from Gu Yuan's perception. Gu Yuan instinctively felt uneasy, instantly turned around. Then I saw a terrific scene. Those mannequin dolls actually didn't disappear. Instead, without a sound, they came behind Gu Yuan. One after another, they formed a long line, almost running through the entire commercial street. And the clothes they wore also changed quietly. They all changed into the same costumes as Gu Yuan. There were extremely weird creeps on the faces made of silicone. It was growing human skin. Some have grown jaws. Looking at the shape of the chin and the distribution of pores, it is also a one-to-one replica of Gu Yuan. These mannequins are not only copying Gu Yuan's dress, but also copying Gu Yuan's face. This scene, no matter how you look at it, is so weird. How you look at it, how shocking it is. And the slower the effect, the harsher the conditions of the weird attack, the greater the destructiveness it will really erupt. It's hard to imagine. If these model dolls really grow Gu Yuan's face, what kind of horrible things will happen? It seems that I am a little wishful thinking. I want to save time, and I don't want to make a fuss here, but it's a bit tricky, and I want to force me to make a move. Gu Yuan muttered to himself. In the originally calm eyes, there suddenly appeared an extremely ferocious and cold look. An unspeakable, terrifying, killing intent erupted in an instant. With a lift of his palm, the copper coin sword that once split the avatar of the unknown person appeared in his hand and directly cut off the row of puppets in front of him. The incomparably terrifying and strange aura resounds loudly. An extremely sharp and strange sword energy floated in the air. This row of model dolls were all split in half from head to toe. And at the same time when these mannequins were shattered, Gu Yuan keenly sensed a unique connection. That's a weird creature hiding behind and manipulating mannequins. Chaos is raging. The figure of Li Neza appeared in front of Gu Yuan. Kill him. Gu Yuan's words are concise, and there is no sloppiness at all. He was never a very kind person. Since the weird creatures lurking here had to attack without knowing what to do, then he had nothing to worry about. Straight to the root. And the reason why Li Neza was summoned is also very simple. Because Li Neza controls the power of space and is the fastest, it can ensure that that damned weird creature cannot escape. Please wait, my lord. Li Neza laughed strangely, his throat moved, and an extremely eerie sound came out of his mouth. Next moment, the two human heads under his feet spun rapidly. The figure flickered. It appeared directly in a clothing store. There is the end point of that secret connection. Boom. Under the control of Li Neza, the space in the clothing store collapsed and exploded inch by inch, and collapsed into ruins in the blink of an eye. A dwarf with extremely short stature, but extremely long hands, jumped up from the ruins strangely. He was wearing a crumpled, oversized suit, looking a little embarrassed and funny, with a huge sense of disobedience. The degree of horror is at the 9-star primary level, close to the intermediate level. Gu Yuan raised his eyebrows. There was a flash of light in his eyes. What kind of person is he? At this moment, I am watching with cold eyes, so I can see clearly. Although the oversized suit was draped on the dwarf's weird body, it looked extremely ridiculous. But in fact, it is precisely because of the existence of this oversized suit that the dwarf can withstand the first wave of attacks by Nie. Otherwise, he would have already died in the turbulent flow of broken space along with the collapsed clothing store. That seems like an interesting thing. Gu Yuan whispered to himself. What kind of terrifying existence is Nie? Being able to block his attack, this oversized suit is probably also a high-grade weird thing. Ahead, Nie's eyes were filled with a strong, fierce light. He was not frustrated when he failed to kill the dwarf in one blow, but became even more excited. Like the feral cat that sees some interesting prey, the heads of the people under the feet are spinning, and the dark train model is floating on the shoulders. This time, Nie has gone all out, and all the spatial powers have unreservedly exploded. Boom. Bang 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 bang. A series of thunderous noises. With the dwarf's weirdness as the center, the space in all directions began to collapse. There are even black cracks appearing, bursting out a terrible attraction. That is the spatial turbulence caused by the collapse of the space, which can forcibly pull the nearby creatures into another dimension and completely crush them. The dwarf has a strange face and panic, but he couldn't escape this terrifying area at all. He can only lift up the oversized suit and wrap his whole body in order to fight against this terrible and strange attack. Chill. A crack appeared on the suit and spread rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chapter 129, Part 2. In the blink of an eye, the suit completely shattered and broke, turning into countless flying fragments, fluttering wantonly like butterflies, all of which were swallowed by the turbulent flow of space. It is still in the hands of the dwarf. Only one piece left. Thin human skin. That appears to be something sewn into an oversized suit. In other words, plus-size suit, just an ornament sewn on the outside. It is this human skin that can really resist the power of space collapse. Gu Yuan watched from afar. His eyes moved and his heart trembled. This human skin. He is so familiar that he can recognize it even if it is turned into ashes. The whole body is scarlet and square, as if soaked in blood. Isn't this the red human skin from before? He has $2 in his hand, a gift from Gue Sujin of Drum Tower Theater. And the other piece comes from the rewards of the horror game after solving the strange dream incident. The two pieces are now merged into one. The third piece of red human skin? I didn't expect to meet you here. It's really hard to find a place to go through iron shoes, and it doesn't take much effort to get it. This dwarf is weird. Since the red human skin is sewn into the large suit, maybe he knows something about the information about the red human skin. Countless thoughts flashed through Gu Yuan's mind. With this in mind, he immediately conveyed an order. Keep alive. For Gu Yuan's order, Nie is naturally executed unconditionally. He waved his hand lightly without hesitation. The terrifying space turbulence was completely wiped out in an instant, as if it had never appeared before. The dwarf escaped strangely and subconsciously wanted to turn around and run away from here. 3.0 But how could he escape from Nie? Next moment, Nie flickered in space and appeared directly in front of the dwarf. The terrifying lotus pattern on his body flickered. A hard punch hit the dwarf's weird face directly. With a strange scream, the dwarf fell headfirst, and its head sank deeply into the floor. Gu Yuan's face was cold and hard, and he walked over quickly. First put away the red human skin. Then, like pulling out a radish, he lifted up the short dwarf. The chaos is dense, and it is easy to completely suppress the strange power of the dwarf. This is an overwhelming advantage. In front of him, the dwarf weird has no room to resist at all. The dwarf trembled strangely. He looked at Gu Yuan steadily. There is an unspeakable fear in his eyes. Carve. His heart was filled with endless regrets. If you give him a chance, let her choose again. No matter what, he would never choose to attack Gu Yuan. This human being in front of him is far more terrifying than other strange creatures. Gu Yuan's eyes were calmly waved the red human skin in his hand. Tell me, what does this thing mean? Chapter 130, Part 1. Facing Gu Yuan's indifferent questioning, the dwarf was shaking and struggling frantically. Throat throbbing, let out a scream of unknown meaning. Gu Yuan was slightly taken aback. Immediately, he frowned, feeling a little surprised. This dwarf's weird intelligence level seems not as high as he imagined, more like a wild beast, acting entirely on instinct. He couldn't understand what Gu Yuan was saying. Can't answer Gu Yuan's question either. This is not normal. Very abnormal. It stands to reason that this low intelligence situation will only appear below the 5-star level. After the level of horror reaches 5 stars and above, the intelligence level of strange creatures will become very high, no different from human beings, and they can communicate normally. But now this dwarf is weird. Already at the level of a 9-star primary level of terror, it is not so ignorant. This far exceeded Gu Yuan's expectations. It seems that there is no more information to be obtained from him. Gu Yuan felt a little regretful. Then the chaotic air that seeped into the dwarf's strange body suddenly became violent and violent. Just click. This fierce dwarf was so strange that he was directly strangled and turned into a piece of scattered flesh and blood. A strange jigsaw puzzle emerges from the flesh and blood. Gu Yuan put away the weird jigsaw puzzle, glanced at the flesh and blood, and couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. A bold idea suddenly jumped into his mind. Next moment, a thin, dry writing brush appeared in Gu Yuan's hand. This is a curse item looted from Demon Boy Wanyan 21 a long time ago. Has a very strange ability, can read people's memory through flesh and blood. Humans and weird creatures, although they belong to two different types of life, are still very similar in essence and have similarities. Since this writing brush can use blood to quickly read human memory. So, in theory, this writing brush should also be able to read the memories of strange creatures. Gu Yuan muttered to himself, analyzing this possibility. Then he bent down, dipped a trace of dripping blood, and began to draw circles on the ground. Soon, strange changes took place in these blood circles. Various illusory images quietly evolved. There was a bit of surprise in Gu Yuan's eyes. This try is right. It really works. Weird writing brush can successfully reproduce the memory of strange creatures. He stared fixedly at the ground. The brain of Eternal Scar was running at an indescribably high speed. These chaotic and complicated pictures and images were quickly sorted out by him, forming a complete chain. Almost all of the dwarf's strange life experiences were clearly exposed in front of Gu Yuan's eyes. In this long memory, there are two pictures that Gu Yuan pays the most attention to. In a dark basement, there was a hideous corpse covered in blood and whose face could not be seen clearly, lying quietly on the table. The dwarf stood strangely aside, his eyes glazed over, his hands raised high, holding a tray respectfully. On the plate, there are many bloody knives. An old woman in black staggered forward. He stared deeply at the corpse, his lips trembling constantly, as if he was whispering some unknown words. After a while, he just picked up a sharp knife and slashed fiercely on the scalp of the corpse, and used this wound as an entry point and start to quickly peel off the skin. Movement is precise and graceful, smooth and decisive. Like an experienced surgeon, this is almost impossible for him at his age. Soon, the entire human skin of the corpse was ripped off. The skin is not damaged at all, and there is a strange scarlet luster flowing on it, which is as perfect as a carefully crafted work of art. The old woman in black held the human skin. Her expression was strange. Her emotions seemed to be extremely complicated. She beat her chest, cried and laughed, crazy and weird. Or the basement. The dwarf knelt on the ground strangely, with a crazy and ferocious expression, and let out a mournful scream. In front of him, the old woman in black who had appeared before was paralyzed. Her face was withered and yellow, and her spirit was listless. She was filled with a strong sense of dilapidation. It seems that the anger is like a gossamer, and life is hanging by a thread. In the hands of the old woman, only one piece of the previous intact human skin remained. The other parts have long since disappeared. The old woman raised her hand with difficulty, stroked the dwarf's weird head, and stuffed the piece of human skin into the dwarf's weird arms. Protect. We failed, but... Kindling. The old woman murmured something, but this part of the speech seemed to be disturbed by some extremely strong and strange interference, and only a few words could be heard. After making the will, the old woman raised her hand, squeezed out a drop of pitch-black blood from her fingertips, and fed it into the dwarf's strange mouth. The dwarf's strange and terrifying level has been greatly improved in an instant, but this kind of counterproductive growth obviously has huge limitations. The dwarf's strange intelligence level has not changed. Not a single meaningful word could be uttered. I can only lie on the old woman's body and scream in pain. So, is this where the red human skin comes from? It comes from the mysterious blood-colored corpse, which was picked up by the old woman in black. However, what is the identity of the old lady in black? What is the identity of the bloody corpse? Is there any special effect to take off this human skin? What happened in the beginning? Why the original intact human skin was completely broken up? Gu Yuan frowned, looked at the scarlet human skin in his hand. The puzzled expression in his eyes did not dissipate. From these memories, he got a lot of important information, but there are still countless questions lingering in his mind. He can be sure that there must be a huge secret hidden behind the red human skin, but he has not found the key to unlock this secret. He hesitated a little. He also took out the red human skin he had obtained earlier. This is made of 2 pieces rolled into one. Perhaps this third piece of human skin can also be joined together? Really? Next moment, on these human skins, an extremely mysterious light began to flow, as if some special law was triggered in the dark. There is no need for Gu Yuan to manipulate it at all. The third piece of red human skin took the initiative to get close to Guodi, and then blended together without any hindrance. The new red human skin became bigger accordingly. The weird runes that appeared before flashed on the human skin again. Although it was the same as before, it only existed for a moment, and then disappeared and disappeared. But Gu Yuan could see clearly. The rune this time is obviously more solid than the previous one, and the color is deeper. With the fusion of the third piece of human skin, the integrity has become significantly higher. But it's not enough. There should still be 2 pieces of human skin scattered outside. As long as you find the rest, this piece should become the original complete forget. At that time, what this red human skin really means, and what it has to do with horror games, should be revealed. However, although no more clues can be traced now, the meaning of this rune that appeared on the red human skin can be clarified in advance. Gu Yuan whispered to himself. Chapter 130, Part 2. Wrist flick. Take out that old dictionary. At this time, the dictionary is undoubtedly the best tool to use. It can be used as a medium to help Gu Yuan learn a lot of forbidden knowledge. He opened the dictionary, skipped the previous sealed letter, and turned to a new blank page. Relying on his extraordinary memory, he wrote down the mysterious runes and imprints he had just seen. The blood on the ground that was still repeating the evolution of memory was also directly scavenged by Gu Yuan, serving as food for trading with the dictionary. First evolve the memory, and then feed the dictionary. The dwarf's weird blood is really the best use of everything, and there is no waste at all. And the dwarf is weird. After all, it is a weird creature with 9 stars. His blood is considered to be of relatively high quality. Feeding a dictionary is no problem. Immediately afterwards, in the blank space next to the 790 characters of the mysterious talisman, extremely scribbled human characters immediately appeared. Sacrifice. Tear off this book page and set it on fire. You will be able to communicate with an extremely terrifying evil god and borrow part of the evil god's power. If you can find more and more advanced blood, the strength and time of borrowing the power of evil gods will be improved. Gu Yuan raised his eyebrows. This weird rune actually represents the meaning of sacrifice, and can borrow the power of the evil god? This kind of borrowing is obviously 2 completely different logics from Gu Yuan's previous stealing. Stealing is devouring the power of the evil god. Stealing the power of the evil god, accumulating the power in oneself, and the improvement of strength is relatively limited. But borrowing is to directly mobilize part of the power of the evil god, which is equivalent to inviting an evil god to temporarily possess it. The destructiveness that can be displayed within a certain period of time is unimaginable. Without any exaggeration, this weird rune is also fully qualified to be one of Gu Yuan's whole cards. No less than the future body of demon Yang Jian. The doctor's summoned train traps the body. The effectiveness of this weird rune is terrifying. However, the old woman in black. Why did you brand this weird rune on the red human skin? Could it be that he took off this weird red human skin to sacrifice a certain existence? But judging by the results, he failed completely. Did the sacrifice fail, or did the priest ask for something that could not defeat the terrifying enemy? Gu Yuan pondered for a moment, but had no clue. He had no choice but to suppress this doubt for the time being. The commercial street incident was just a small episode. His most important task at present is to complete the trial task of the Qingfeng Guanju. Gain complete control over King Fengwen. You must know that such a fierce place like King Fengwen is a place that those evil gods want to infiltrate and control. It can be seen that these fierce places must be extremely important. Maybe be able to play some kind of unbelievably terrible role in the future. Seizing the occupation in advance is a good thing for Gu Yuan, which has all benefits and no harm. Chapter 131, Part 1. The road from the commercial street to King Fengwen was not peaceful either, although Gu Yuan doesn't want to add extra complications. But the weird creatures lurking in the dark do not intend to let Gu Yuan go. Gu Yuan simply started killing all the way. The Buddha blocked and killed the Buddha, and the God blocked and killed the God. Killed more than 29-star monsters blocking the way, and killed a bloody road. Correspondingly, more than 29-star puzzles have been harvested directly. These puzzles, of course, were all taken by Gu Yuan to feed the mythical weirdness. Same strategy as before. Gu Yuan is not evenly distributed. Instead, he chose to concentrate superior resources and raise the horror level of a specific myth. This lucky guy is Imo Yangjian. He holds the power of time, which is really special. At critical moments, that's something that can be used to turn the tide. And Imo Yangjian did not disappoint Gu Yuan's expectations. After devouring more than 29-star puzzles in one go, the horror level has risen to the 9-star intermediate level. Finally reached. Gu Yuan raised his head and glanced at the familiar dilapidated Taoist temple gate in front of him. Slightly relieved, he calculated that it took about an hour from receiving the mission to arriving here. 12 hours of time-limited tasks. Now there are still 11 hours of operation space left. In terms of time, it is completely enough. And just when Gu Yuan was about to step into Qingfeng Temple, a terrible cold breath suddenly surged up. The wind swept by. A familiar strange figure appeared in front of Gu Yuan. It's the wishing trick from before. He stood there coldly, with gloomy and ferocious eyes, fixedly staring at Gu Yuan, filled with a monstrous malice. Gu Yuan was slightly taken aback. Immediately reacted. The wishing sly is a very special existence, controlling a terrifying spiritual power. He itself does not belong to the real world. Instead, it exists in some kind of independent weird space. From that time, Gu Yuan has already realized that wishing ghosts obviously have the ability to cross the boundaries of the world. This ability is idealistic, drawn by the wisher. It is essentially different from the space power of the treacherous train. Therefore, it is quite normal for wishing tricks to appear in the other world. And generally speaking, there is only one reason for making a wish and returning home. He brought back what Gu Yuan needed. Wish come true. Next moment, wishing Gue slowly raised his hand. Between the skinny 5 fingers, there is a grimace that can't be twisted tightly. This grimace's eyes widened, its lips trembled, and its face was pale, showing a kind of indescribable horror. This is source of fear, matching with the 3 weird jigsaw puzzles of the source of happiness, the source of sadness, and the source of anger. There is the 4th basic emotion, and what Gu Yuan has been longing for. With this grimace, the evil Golden Cicada will be completely completed. He raised his hand without hesitation, released the evil Golden Cicada from the mythical space. That's for you. Gu Yuan gestured. Xie Jinshan looked in the direction that Gu Yuan pointed, and then the human face, angry face, crying face, and smiling face all showed a strong greedy look. He has already felt the strong attraction that seems to come from the source of the soul. Next moment, he just stepped forward without hesitation. The 4 faces opened their mouths at the same time, sticking out their tongues, showing a very strange elongated posture, directly entwined around this frightened ghost face. Almost in an instant, the strange power contained in the source of fear was directly swallowed up by him. At the position of his chin, the skin wriggled very strangely. A terrified face quietly emerged. At this moment, Jinshan has a 5th face. The 4 basic emotions of joy, anger, sorrow, and fear are all concentrated in one body. Some kind of indistinct defect is filled in quietly. His own level of terror also soared upwards at an extremely terrifying speed. He actually directly skipped the 9-star intermediate and 9-star advanced thresholds, promoted to the top 9 stars. Become Gu Yuan's subordinate, the existence with the highest level of terror. You know, the level of the source of fear is actually only 6 stars. It's hard to imagine that a mere 6-star puzzle can bring Xie Jinshan such huge benefits. This is the effect of the weird puzzle combination of the same system. The original low-level jigsaw puzzles, after being combined, will show some unbelievable effects. This terrifying improvement was also fed back to Gu Yuan. His aura also skyrocketed, straight to the top of the 9 stars. This is a huge leap. At the same time, Wishing's treacherous gaze also became extremely gloomy. A terrifying cold atmosphere quietly permeated the air. According to the rules of making a wish, he has fulfilled Gu Yuan's wish, and now it's time to ask for the price. Gu Yuan had already prepared. The deceitful bone marrow in the body released a strange power. Fraudulent power works quietly. I never made any wish to you, because Gu Yuan's own level of terror is much stronger than before. The deceitful power that it can use has also received an unimaginable and terrifying increase. This time, wishing Gue didn't even have time to be confused and struggle, and was completely deceived directly. He stood where he was and raised his hands, passed another white note to Gu Yuan. Under the influence of the power of fraud, everything is reset, and the entire wishing process starts all over again. Gu Yuan took the note. His eyes moved slightly, and he glanced at the Qingfeng temple in front of him. Is it possible to directly obtain the ancient scripture required by the mission through the extremely idealistic power of wishing Gue, and complete the trial mission by trick? He understands that this possibility is very small, but it doesn't hurt to try. What if it happens? Isn't that blood money? Afterwards, he directly condensed the chaotic energy and quickly wrote a line of ministers on the note. I hope that I can get the ancient scriptures hidden in Qingfeng Temple, but at the same time as it was written, the handwriting quickly disappeared. This wish has already exceeded the limit of Su Xiaogui's ability. Cannot achieve. Gu Yuan is not depressed either. As he expected, thriller games will not allow his behavior of obviously exploiting loopholes. The trial task of King Fengwen is likely to be related to the core secret of some kind of horror game. Wishing Gue can intervene in it. Then besides the ancient scriptures, what else do I need urgently? Gu Yuan frowned, thinking quickly in his heart. An idea suddenly entered his mind. Correct. Before on the strange train, Roshan Wei once mentioned that if I want to go to the Sea of Disillusionment, I must first find suitable materials that can withstand the erosion of the Sea of Disillusionment. Only by building a ship in this way can it be possible to go to sea. But regarding this kind of material, I have never had a clue. Maybe I can get some kind of breakthrough from the wishing trick. With this in mind, Gu Yuan didn't have any hesitation anymore and started writing directly and quickly. I hope to find materials for ships that can sail on the Sea of Disillusionment and build a real ship. This time, the writing did not disappear. Chapter 131, Part 2. Although this kind of wish is very difficult, it seems to be within the scope of the terrifying idealism of wishing Gue. Wishing Gue took the sticky note and took a serious look at the words on it. Then, with that kind of extremely indifferent and fierce gaze, he stared fiercely at Gu Yuan, then turned and left unhurriedly. Once again, it disappeared strangely. Gu Yuan watched his back. I felt a little embarrassed for a while. He felt that he was like the most evil and hateful capitalist, ruthlessly manipulating the wishing trick. I don't know. If one day later, the power of deception expires, and the wishing ghost knows the truth of everything, will he be furious and fly into a rage? But, should I say it or not, the wishing trick is really easy to use. When the next time the wishing ghost returns, it means that the preliminary preparations to the Sea of Disillusionment have been completed. At that time, I should pack up and go to sea to find the lost king, Gu Yuan muttered to himself. Immediately there was no longer the slightest stay and nostalgia. Step forward directly, come to the dilapidated door, push the door and enter. He officially stepped into Qingfeng Temple. This is also a reflection projection. It is exactly the same as the view of Qingfeng in the real world. The layout is just a little different. Gu Yuan took a glance, immediately came to a conclusion. After all, he is the representative of Qingfeng Temple, and he is very familiar with the architectural structure in it. However, here, my proxy authority, Yiping, is restricted. It is impossible to communicate with the Qingfeng Temple as a whole, and there is no way for the will to integrate into the Qingfeng Temple and gain insight into all corners. Gu Yuan's voice was calm. This situation has long been expected. He walked calmly, according to his understanding of the architectural pattern, walked through Nuo Zhao Zhao, through the corridor, and headed towards the Jinwu Hall in the core area. It is the most sacred place of Qingfeng Temple, and it is also the place where the ancient scriptures are most likely to be hidden. Soon, he stood in front of the main hall. This hall is very dilapidated, the paint has peeled off in many places, and there are even messy spider webs entrenched in the corners. It seemed like it hadn't been cleaned for a long time. Huh, what sound? Gu Yuan was about to open the door and enter when he suddenly stopped. He heard a muffled groan. It seems that an old Taoist priest is whispering an extremely mysterious sutra, but this sound only appeared for a moment, and then disappeared completely. Even with Gu Yuan's keen perception, it is completely impossible to capture specific traces. At the same time, there was a strange smell of ink emerging, and it went straight into Gu Yuan's nose. It seems that someone just splashed ink and wrote a masterpiece. This kind of fragrance is very weird. It seems to be able to evoke many things in Gu Yuan's mind and arouse the deepest desire in Gu Yuan's heart. And the same as the scriptures just now, this smell of ink only existed for a moment. It will never be found again. There is only a faint musty smell left in the air. Just like the smell of ink just now, it's just an illusion. But Gu Yuan is very clear. It is absolutely impossible for him to have any hallucinations. Here, there must be some kind of unspeakable weirdness. Chapter 132, Part 1. The strange sound of chanting scriptures. The strange smell of ink. What do these things represent? Is it related to my trial mission? Gu Yuan raised his eyebrows. A gleam flashed in his eyes. He vaguely felt that he seemed to have grasped some very important clues. But everything is like a flower in the mirror and the moon in the water, disappearing in a flash. He pondered for a moment. Gu Yuan raised his hand and pushed open the door of Jinwu Hall in front of him. The inside of the main hall was even messier and dilapidated than the outside, with dust everywhere. In the center stands the statue of Emperor Jinwu, surrounded by accompanying Taoist gods. However, there are a large number of black cracks all over these god statues, densely packed and innumerable. It seems that they have been extremely old and in disrepair, and they will soon be broken and destroyed. There was an indescribably terrifying and cold air that quietly diffused from the crack, making people unstoppably horrified. It gives a feeling. It seems that these god statues are not ordinary god statues, but some kind of special seals, in which some extremely terrifying strange creatures are imprisoned. Gu Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly, and his sharp gaze passed over these strange statues. Immediately, a strong alert rose in my heart. While he was vigilant against these statues, he quickly scanned his surroundings, trying to find some clues about the ancient scriptures. That is. Soon, Gu Yuan's gaze was locked on the altar under the statue of Emperor Jinwu. There are a lot of sacrifices placed there. Moldy fruit, rotting corn, withered flowers, and an exquisite sandalwood box. Among the common sacrifices, this sandalwood box is extremely eye-catching and abrupt. This unusual sign may be the clue. Without hesitation, Gu Yuan took 3 steps and 2 steps, and came to the altar. He opened the sandalwood box. In the wooden box, there is a yellow scroll, one corner of which is slightly unfolded, revealing several strange runes. The handwriting is still very bright, with streaks of luster surging, as if it was just written. Is this the ancient book I was looking for? Gu Yuan muttered to himself. Seeing this ancient scripture, not only did he not feel any joy, but he frowned. Something is wrong. How can it be so smooth and easy? You know, from stepping into the gate of Qingfeng Pavilion to seeing this ancient scripture, it took less than 20 minutes. Found the ancient scriptures so quickly? No difficulty at all? It's been surprisingly smooth. You know, this is not an ordinary task, but a trial task for the master of Qingfeng Temple. Once the task is completed, it means that he will completely gain control of this murderous place and become the master here. Will this kind of task really allow Gu Che to complete it so easily? For a while, in Gu Yuan's mind, he couldn't help but think of the previous task description. Look for it with your heart. Listen with your heart. Tian 1, don't go astray. Perhaps, the easily accessible ancient scripture in front of me is the so-called wrong way? And while Gu Yuan was thinking, a tooth-piercing crackling sound suddenly sounded. An inexplicable sense of warning flashed across Gu Yuan's heart. He raised his head hastily and glanced around with extremely sharp and fierce eyes. The statue of Emperor Jinwu in front of him, as well as the statues of accompanying Taoist gods around him, began to crumble violently at this moment. Pieces of debris, like kites with broken strings, collapsed with a huff. Just as Gu Yuan expected, hidden among these statues are really terrifying and weird creatures. Among the 12 statues of accompanying gods, all of them are 9-star top-level weird ones. Kbaff, and the weird one contained in the statue of Emperor Jinwu is so terrifying that it has even reached the terrifying and shocking 10-star elementary level. At the moment of breaking free from the shackles of the statue, these strange creatures all turned their heads stiffly and cast their extremely sinister eyes on Gu Yuan. At the same time, the door raised his big skinny hands. His fingers like dry wood were as sharp as knives, slashing coldly, tearing the air, and launched a strange attack towards Gu Yuan. For a moment, an incomparably rich and terrifying strange aura filled the hall of true martial arts. The violent and boiling strange aura is enough to smash any living beings who approach into a ball of dripping meat sauce. Gu Yuan's eyes were indifferent, not a trace of fear. 1 10-star junior, 12 9-star top. This is an extremely huge and terrifying strange force, enough to knock down countless powerful existences, but wanting to strangle Gu Yuan is not enough. He raised his hand without hesitation. Behind him, evil impermanence, Nie Yan Luo, Black Wukong, Xie Jinshan, Demon Yangjian, and Li Neza are strange myths, lined up in a row. The soul chain, the bone seal, the skeleton stick, the ancient book of the 7 sins, the terrifying sky eye, and the model of the treacherous train all erupted with an extremely cold and strange atmosphere. An indescribably huge melee broke out immediately, although Gu Yuan seems to be at a huge disadvantage both in terms of numbers and terror. But after the battle really started, the situation has shown an extremely strange one-sided posture. Evil Wu used to move the chains of seductive souls, Nie Yan Luo held up the seal of bones, and Black Wukong waved the skull stick. These 3 myths are weird. All of them are 1 to 2, so that the statues can't even lift their heads. And Xie Jinshan had a solemn expression, murmuring a terrible Buddhist scripture. The other 4 grimaces all opened their mouths wide, and the 4 different harmonies of crying, laughing, roaring, and screaming gathered together as a foil, as if to make the power of the Buddhist scriptures of Xie Jinshan even more powerful and terrifying. The other 6 accompanying statues were weird, retreating steadily under his oppression, and all crowded in the corner of the hall. Although they didn't have any wounds on their bodies, their faces were extremely distorted, as if they were suffering some kind of unspeakable pain. The Buddhist scriptures recited by Xie Jinshan are like sharp knives one after another, ruthlessly piercing their deep consciousness. Although they are both top 9 stars, the power of the evil Golden Cicada is just so domineering. With 1 against 6, it is still an invincible crushing posture. And the other side, Mo Yangjian and Li Neza both took on the role of support. Together with Gu Yuan, they began to hunt and kill the most terrifying 10-star junior monster in the field, who came out of the statue of Emperor Jinwu. Mo Yangjian had a fierce expression on his forehead, and the sky eyes were opened, and the 3 narrow and mysterious pupils were moving at an unimaginable speed. The terrifying power of time is divided into 2. One is the ability of time stagnation, applied to this strange body of Jinwu, making his movements instantly stiff and stagnant in midair. And the other one is the ability to speed up time, pouring it on Gu Yuan without reservation. At the same time, Li Neza also took similar actions. The 2 human heads under his feet were revolving at an indescribably high speed. The treacherous train model on the shoulder also erupted with an extremely terrifying and shocking roar. Space power surges wantonly. Chapter 132, Part 2. This made Gu Yuan's figure appear in front of Jinwu in an instant. The copper coin sword was raised high, cut out countless terrifying sword qi. In itself, Gu Yuan's level of terror has reached an extremely terrifying level. Within 1 second, it is enough to cut out hundreds of thousands of sword qi. And now, under the power of time acceleration, he attacked wildly for more than 10 seconds, and the outside world only passed 1 second. It is equivalent to chopping out millions of Senran sword intent within 1 second. This is even more terrifying. Directly raised the power of the copper coin sword to an unparalleled, overbearing level. 108 ghost copper coins vibrated and screamed, and the silk thread of faith hummed, and the original true hair contained in it burst out with unrestricted and terrifying power of slashing. Almost at this moment, this real martial artist who just got rid of the shackles and wanted to have a big fight was brazenly sliced into countless messy flesh and blood by Gu Yuan. As soon as it was born, it fell directly, before even having time to see what Gu Yuan looks like. At the same time, winners were also decided on other battlefields. The mythical creepers have won a landslide victory. All the god statues are weird. They all died suddenly and turned into the most primitive weird puzzle. Gu Yuan put away all the weird puzzles. All were fed directly to Mo Yangjian. This is his long-established strategy. Prioritize increasing the terror level of Demon Yangjian. The ease of use of that mysterious time power in actual combat is completely beyond imagination. And under the inclination of this large wave of resources, the level of terror of Mo Yangjian has also soared directly to the level of the top 9 stars. The level of 9 stars is already quite terrifying. In terms of the order of magnitude of the strange power, the gap between the first level and the first level is unimaginably large. Even if it is a 10-star weird puzzle, it can only raise the horror level of Mo Yangjian from the 9-star intermediate level to the 9-star top level, and it is far from reaching the 10-star level. Gu Yuan glanced at it, muttered something to himself, and analyzed the situation. As the level of horror increases, it becomes more and more difficult, step by step. However, Gu Yuan is not too worried. If it is a 10-star jigsaw puzzle, there is no way to achieve a breakthrough. Then another piece. Anyway, with Gu Yuan's current strength, hunting down the 10-star junior way is nothing more than a breeze. Immediately afterwards, he just turned around leisurely. He focused his attention on the ancient scriptures in the sandalwood box again. Is this ancient scripture the one I need? Is it wrong to choose him? Gu Yuan whispered to himself, a little hesitant. After thinking for a short moment, a somewhat natural look flashed across his eyes. It's useless to think so much. He has to try. Even if this ancient scripture book is not real, perhaps more clues can be obtained through the touching process. However, something weird happened. Gu Yuan's fingertips pierced through this ancient scripture unexpectedly. Nothing is touched. It was as if what was in front of me was just an illusion. This volume of ancient scriptures did not exist at all. Sure enough, everything is not that easy. Even if you kill those strange statues, if you want to really get the ancient scriptures, there are still other thresholds to pass. Illusions are impossible. There must be something wrong with some links. Gu Yuan frowned and whispered to himself. The eternal brain operates at super high speed, analyzing the current situation. Can you see it, but can't you touch it? Why? Is this ancient scripture, just like the wishing ghost, it doesn't exist here, but in a special weird space? Chapter 133, Part 1. Gu Yuan stared at the ancient scripture. All kinds of conjectures could not help rising in my heart. The situation in front of me is indeed very similar to the time when I met the wishing creeper. At that time, the wishing ghost existed in a special strange place, and only by picking up the sticky note and using it as a medium could you see him. Now, perhaps this sandalwood box is a similar medium. Through him, can one see the ancient scriptures that exist in another space? He turned his head and looked at Feng Neza, who was standing beside him. Mythical creator and mythical eccentricity are connected. Li Neza naturally understands the meaning of Gu Yuan. With gloomy eyes, he took a step forward and carefully watched the circle of ancient scriptures. The two extremely weird human heads under their feet spun rapidly at an indescribably terrifying speed. The treacherous train model on the shoulder also made an extremely hoarse and shocking buzz. An extremely terrifying space force swept away. Li Neza wants to use that powerful space power to forcibly break the space barrier, penetrate another strange place, and seize ancient scriptures. The power of space swept across, permeating the entire sandalwood box in an instant, covering the entire Zhenwu Hall in the blink of an eye. But that volume of ancient scriptures was still lying there in good condition, motionless, completely unaffected. He completely ignored the influence of the power of space. Li Neza also failed. My lord. Li Neza turned his head and looked at Gu Yuan. His throat twitched, and he let out an incomparably hoarse growl. Gu Yuan nodded slightly. His gaze became extremely serious. He understood what Li Neza meant. It seems that my guess was wrong. Li Neza is a 9-star mythical monster, and can connect to the empty door in the mythical space. The weird power it possesses is extremely powerful. If this ancient scripture really exists in another strange place like the wishing ghost, then even if Li Neza can't successfully capture it, it will definitely interfere with it, instead of having no effect like it is now. So, this ancient scripture exists in a state that I can't understand yet. 17 Gu Yuan muttered to himself. Also fell into trouble for a while. He hesitated for a moment. His gaze was focused on the exposed corner of the ancient scriptures. There's a very cryptic rune in there. Whoosh. In Gu Yuan's palm, the dilapidated dictionary appeared again. He was familiar with the road, and directly opened a blank page. Draw this rune on the tomb. Those statues that died before were strange, and their flesh and blood were used by Gu Yuan to feed the ancient scriptures. The relevant translation content immediately surfaced. Tear off this page and light it. You can see what others can't see. Gu Yuan frowned. What does this word represent? The eye. Eyes of eyes? About vision? Perhaps this is the key clue? Before entering the Zhenwu Hall, I heard the sound of the old Taoist chanting sutras. It was hearing. I also once smelled a strange smell of ink. That is the sense of smell. The eternal brain works fast. A large number of clues and details were quickly intertwined and connected together in Gu Yuan's mind. This made Gu Yuan realize something. He has a pretty bold guess. Next moment, he put down the sandalwood box. Turning around, he came directly to the gate of Jinwu Hall. Don't say a word. Just stand here quietly, waiting. He needs a further breakthrough to prove his conjecture, whether it is correct or not. Time passed between minutes and seconds. Gu Yuan looked indifferently, not in a hurry, like an old monk in meditation. Since the sound of chanting sutras and the smell of ink suddenly appeared before, it will definitely appear again. Just need the right timing. Finally, an hour later, the extremely mysterious and gloomy Taoist chanting sound rang out again. It's just as eerie and weird as before, and it's just as hoarse and ugly. It doesn't look like you're reciting sacred scriptures at all, but it looks like you're doing some kind of extremely vicious curse. The sound is just fleeting and disappears in the blink of an eye. Gu Yuan gently raised his hand. Imo Yangjian, who had been prepared for a long time, took a step forward without hesitation. The terrifying sky eyes suddenly opened, covering almost the entire top of the skull, with a fierce light, shocking hackers. The three long and narrow pupils, like the hour hand, minute hand, and second hand, quickly began to reverse. Go back in time for a minute. Back to the weird Taoist chanting sound, the moment it just appeared. Lineza also raised his hand instantly. The lotus petals on her body flickered in an extremely strange manner and shed an incomparably bewitching cold light. The space where the sound of chanting appeared was immediately forcibly blocked. It forms a terrifying cage that cannot be seen or touched, but does exist. He imprisoned that weird voice abruptly with his terrifying spatial power. Next moment, in that space, the air suddenly trembled strangely. It's as if there is an invisible monster that is crazily rushing around, trying to escape from this cage. But no matter how he struggles, he can't break this space cage carefully constructed by Lineza. Gu Yuan raised his head slightly. Lineza immediately raised his hand, stretched out a slender finger, and stroked lightly in the air. Lineza snatched the space cage that imprisoned the strange sound from the main space and sent it to Gu Yuan. The air was still shaking, and the mysterious and unspeakable sound of chanting reverberated, which made people feel a little creepy. Without the slightest hesitation, Gu Yuan walked back to the Jinwu Hall and opened the sandalwood box, then stuffed this space into the box. Strange to say, suddenly, a part of that volume of ancient scriptures became solid. It's no longer the inaccessible state before. Some parts can already be touched. Sure enough, it's exactly what I thought. This is the most important part of the trial mission of King Fengwen Guanzhou, and it is also the biggest trap. Actually, the ancient scriptures are not a complete one, but divided into 6 parts. And the method of dividing these 6 parts is also very weird and unique. It's not a physical separation, it's a perceptual separation. Gu Yuan's eyes were filled with that incomparably bright light. He has keenly grasped the truth of this trial mission. There is a very old saying in Chinese Taoism. That is, the 6 roots and 6 senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind, represents the 6 basic perceptions of human beings: sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, intuition. What was originally contained in the sandalwood box was only 1/6 of the vision of the ancient scriptures. Therefore, it can be clearly seen, but it cannot be touched at all and cannot be seized. And now, after Gu Yuan captured that eerie chanting sound, he merged it with the vision. In this way, the integrity of the ancient scriptures has been greatly improved. Naturally, a part escaped from hiding and appeared in front of Gu Yuan. Finding ideas is the most difficult thing. Now that the key clues have been cracked, the rest is very simple. The strange ink fragrance I smelled before should be the sense of smell among the 6 basic senses. Gu Yuan muttered to himself. Step out of the gate of the main hall again and wait on the sidelines. Chapter 133, Part 2. Waiting for the appearance of that ink fragrance. Not long after, the weird smell emerged again. Gu Yuan repeated his old trick. Demon Yangjian and Lineza cooperate with each other, and the 2 most mysterious ancient powers, time power and space power, are connected with each other, and they are always beneficial. The strange ink fragrance, representing the sense of smell, was also successfully captured by Gu Yuan. As for the remaining 3 feelings, they should not be so concentrated anymore. and maybe scattered in different corners of King Fengwen. Gu Yuan pondered for a moment. Then a very bold decision was made. Around his body, a strange chaotic mist escaped, spreading madly in all directions at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, the entire Qingfeng temple was covered. These chaotic mist will serve as Gu Yuan's tentacles, helping Gu Yuan perceive every detail of Qingfeng temple. But this kind of action is also very dangerous, because there are still a large number of strange creatures of unknown levels roaming in the Qingfeng temple. No one knows what kind of strange abilities they will have. Spreading out ghosts wantonly, such an arrogant and domineering posture, is likely to irritate the strange creatures scattered in other places, and then invite a terrible siege. Ordinary creatures definitely don't have the guts. Only Gu Yuan, who is confident enough in his own strength and believes that his whole cards are strong enough, dares to make such a crazy move. One after another, the strange creatures were attracted by ghosts and creatures. While roaring angrily and coldly, they launched all kinds of weird attacks towards Gu Yuan. The 6 myths are strange, and Gu Yuan has long arranged them in all directions to kill these strange creatures who dare to approach, and avoid their interference to Gu Yuan as much as possible. In a blink, with Gu Yuan as the center, within a radius of 10 meters, corpses have piled up into mountains, and blood has flowed into rivers. Nearly 79 strange creatures died here. The buildings in all directions have completely collapsed, and collapsed due to the fierce confrontation, turning into ruins. And such fierce battles are of course valuable. The salty taste representing the sense of taste, and the withered feeling representing the sense of touch were all successfully found by Gu Yuan and fell into his pocket. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind, color, sound, fragrance and touch, and then there are only things that represent department stores. This is the most mysterious part, and I don't know what form it will appear in. Gu Yuan frowned slightly. The previous task introduction resurfaced in his mind again. Find it with your heart. Feel it with your heart. He simply took a deep breath. Sit cross-legged directly on the spot. Start to abandon all distracting thoughts, close all senses, and only one heart is left to perceive the outside world. The sandalwood box is placed in front of you. The ancient scriptures have become extremely solid. Only the last corner is left, which is extremely vain and mysterious. Chapter 134, Part 1. As Gu Yuan settled down, the volume of ancient scriptures in front of him also began to shake gradually, shining even weirder light. This light, silently, enveloped Gu Yuan quietly. At the same time, Gu Yuan immediately felt a very special change. His consciousness was brought into an extremely mysterious space. In all directions, it was all foggy, and nothing superfluous could be seen, filled with an indescribable gloomy atmosphere. Here it is. Gu Yuan raised his eyebrows. Some looked around curiously. He knew very well that most of the time he searched for it with his own heart, and had a special resonance with the ancient scriptures in this view of the breeze. Perhaps here, you can find the ancient scriptures that represent intuition. At the same time, he could feel that the connection between himself and the mythical weirdness was restricted. Here, he can't summon the mythical monsters to accompany him in battle. Next moment, fog surged ahead. A figure walks out. Gu Yuan looked up and couldn't help but feel a shock in his heart. The figure that suddenly appeared looked exactly the same as him. There was no difference at all. Even a certain pore and a certain line on the skin are exactly the same, and there is no fault at all. It's just that the eyes of the two sides are slightly different. Gu Yuan's eyes are clear and bright, like the morning stars in the sky, and the eyes of the fake Gu Yuan on the opposite side are chaotic and dark, shining with an extremely vicious and ferocious. Apparently, this fake Gu Yuan, 21, must be a very strange weird creature with some kind of special power. Gu Yuan frowned. In the eyes, there are mysterious runes covered with bloodshot one after another. The original pupil is activated quietly. This is the terrifying power that can break through all falsehoods and gain insight into all truths. But it was beyond Gu Yuan's expectation. Under this real vision, the fake Gu Yuan in front of him didn't change much, and he was still standing there perfectly. Just like this, it is his truest appearance. You don't have to look hard. You are me and I am you. Fake Gu Yuan sneered and said in a very sinister manner. As he said that, in his eyes, those strange runes and bloodshots actually flashed, and they also showed the power of the original pupil. What? Gu Yuan was a little surprised. He suddenly raised his hand, and the copper coin sword flickered out, and he held it in his hand. The fake Gu Yuan on the opposite side did exactly the same thing, and also took out a copper coin sword. 108 ghost copper coins covered with green patina. In a special gesture, carefully wound silk threads of faith. And that unstoppable sharpness. Everything is exactly the same. This is not a fake at all, the height it can achieve. It's like another copper coin sword, but it's impossible. The copper coin sword is Gu Yuan's original creation. It is absolutely impossible that there will be a second one in the world. This surprised Gu Yuan even more. Hee, don't struggle anymore. Kill you. I will leave here for you. And I will make your name known all over the world. Fake Gu Yuan sneered. Take a sudden step. It flashed in front of Gu Yuan. That kind of space power that comes from Lineza. He also has it. Swish. The copper coin sword flew across the sky and directly slashed at Gu Yuan's head. That extremely sharp slashing power surged wantonly, piercing Gu Yuan's scalp numb. Gu Yuan's expression was grim. Also waved the copper coin sword. Two earth-shattering special weapons collided together, bursting out unimaginably terrifying and strange fluctuations. The foggy atmosphere in all directions vibrated accordingly, just like a tsunami, setting off unparalleled huge waves. More than 200 ghost copper coins collided and screamed, and made an extremely shrill and hoarse-sharp explosion, which made people's eardrums hurt. In the blink of an eye, once this person was tricky, he went straight through hundreds of tricks. Copper coin sword versus copper coin sword. Chaos ghost versus chaos ghost. Great Nirvana versus Great Nirvana. Countless tricks to mobilize. The scene was extremely anxious, close to white-hot. No one can gain the upper hand. No one can suppress anyone. Gu Yuan's eyes were cold. He was not overwhelmed by this strange situation and still maintained a high degree of rationality. While fighting fiercely, he was running the eternal brain at high speed, thinking about this weird phenomenon. What is the problem? What is the state of existence of this strange creature? I closed other perceptions, leaving only my heart to observe the outside world. So I came to this weird space. This strange creature not only looks exactly like me, but can even use the original pupil and hold a copper coin sword. He knows almost everything I have mastered, he said. He is me, and I am he. I see. There was a gleam in Gu Yuan's eyes. It's time to figure out what's going on right now. In Taoist terms, this strange creature in front of him is actually Gu Yuan's demon. In a way, he is right. He is actually a part of Gu Yuan himself. It is precisely because of this. He is able to use all kinds of Gu Yuan's unique powers so freely. One person, one strangeness belong to one body. The level of strange power is the same. The method is the same. The fighting style is the same, and the fighting strategy is the same. In this situation, even if you fight until you are exhausted, you can't win. Continue to fight like this. I have no chance of winning. This weird space is closely related to the part of the ancient scriptures that represents intuition, equivalent to the lair of the devil's heart. Here, his strange power can be easily replenished. But I'm different. My strange power is like water without a source and a tree without roots. Once it's exhausted, it's really exhausted. If this stalemate continues, I will definitely lose and be completely replaced by my demons. You have to figure out a way. Gu Yuan swung the copper coin sword, and in the blink of an eye, he made hundreds of tricks with the demon. He could already feel that, in terms of the strength of the strange power, the demons of the heart were about to gradually gain the upper hand. This is not good news. How do I overcome my demons? Or, how should I overcome myself? Gu Yuan's thoughts turned, and he thought quickly. After a brief hesitation, in his heart, a very bold idea flashed across the sky. Ahead, with gloomy and stern eyes, the evil heart pierced Gu Yuan with a sword. And this time, Gu Yuan didn't take any blocking methods. Stopped suddenly, unreservedly exposed his body to the sharp blade of the copper coin sword. Chick! The copper coin sword pierced Gu Yuan's body fiercely. The rusty copper coin rubbed against the flesh and blood, and there was a sound like a busta tearing apart. This kind of situation made Xian and Mo Gue slightly taken aback. In the originally incomparably dark and stern eyes, there was a bit of suspenseful light involuntarily. He and Gu Yuan are one. Not only do they possess the same abilities, but their personalities are also very similar. He knows it. Gu Yuan is definitely not the kind of person who will give up easily and wait to die with anger. His style has always been to move forward indomitably, fight desperately, and will do everything possible to struggle out a hope in the midst of despair. Chapter 134, Part 2. How could a person like him give up resistance and let the copper money sword penetrate into his body? There is definitely a conspiracy. Next moment, Xian Mague realized the danger, hastily raised his hand, resolutely gave up the copper coin sword, and wanted to stay away from Gu Yuan. But it's too late. What Gu Yuan waited for was his hesitant opportunity. Boom. A bang. Gu Yuan was like a huge wild beast. He rushed out and slammed into Xian Mague's body, and was about to be directly crushed to the ground. Then he opened his mouth suddenly, and bit the heart demon's fragile throat like a wolf. A stream of dripping blood flowed into Gu Yuan's mouth. This is the killing blow that has been prepared for a long time. Xian Mague's face changed drastically, and he immediately felt a kind of extreme pain. He struggled crazily, and terrifying powers surged out one after another. But Gu Yuan also has these powers. With this method, she can't get rid of Yuan's deadly threat. Time passed between minutes and seconds. The treacherous struggle of the heart gradually becomes weaker. But Gu Yuan did not take it lightly. He didn't let go, but bit harder, until Xian Mague's body was completely stiff and all the breath of life dissipated. Only then did Gu Yuan stand up with difficulty. An indescribable feeling of weakness and exhaustion spread all over the body for a while. The body that was pierced before felt an unspeakable pain. That was the wound left by the copper coin sword, filled with extremely terrifying destructive power. In a short time, it cannot be repaired at all. This is the first time Gu Yuan has been reduced to such a miserable state since the advent of horror games. Sure enough, in this world, the most difficult enemy to defeat is yourself after all. Sudden. Puff. The ghostly corpse was completely shattered. It turned into a series of extremely strange and rich air currents, all of which poured into Gu Yuan's body. Under the nourishment of this air current, the wound on Gu Yuan's body increased at a speed visible to the naked eye. The original lingering feeling of weakness is also quickly subsiding, and, more importantly, Gu Yuan could feel it. My own strange power is soaring at a terrifying speed, although his level of terror is still at the top of the 9-star level. But the strength of the strange power that can be controlled has actually increased by a full 10 times compared to before. This is an amazing change. In other words, even though Gu Yuan failed to advance, his actual combat power is far superior to his previous self. This is a sublimation of the essence of the soul. No matter how many weird puzzles there are, they can't compare with the huge profits. The existence of the heart demon is a very terrible threat. But after successfully killing him, the benefits that can be brought are so huge, it has completely exceeded my imagination. Gu Yuan was a little surprised. At the same time, he has a strange feeling. It seems that after absorbing the power of the inner demon, my own ghosts and creatures have undergone certain unpredictable changes. He thought about it. A wave of chaotic breath filled the air, filling this space in the blink of an eye. And in the center of the chaotic ghost, on the other hand, a Tai Chi pattern appeared suddenly, filled with an incomprehensible huge mystery. The overall strength of ghosts and creatures is also several times higher than before. The next day. Chapter 135, Part 1. Gu Yuan's eyes were pleasantly surprised. With a thought, he carefully felt the changes in his ghost. Or more precisely, he is feeling the Taiji yin and yang fish that are constantly circulating in this chaos. This kind of yin and yang duality does not have that sacred feeling, but is full of extreme weirdness and evil. It seems that this is not the supreme totem of Taoism. It is a demonic rune of a strange church, implying a kind of elusive terror. In the white part, there is a hot feeling that seems to be able to burn the soul, like a strange god standing above the sky, making people afraid to look directly at it. And the black part is gloomy and piercing. Even if you look at it a little more, you will feel an extremely cold feeling, and you can't help but tremble all over. It seems to be the kind of weird demon hidden deep in the abyss. One is weirdly masculine and masculine. One is weirdly yin and soft. These two are completely different, but possess unparalleled and destructive special powers, forming an extremely delicate balance. They exist in the chaos, spinning forever and forever, indelible. It's as if in a chaotic and ignorant primordial universe, a special world was slowly born. Compared with the pure chaotic ghost creature before, this state of existence seems to be more advanced and rare. The bloody screen of the horror game emerged at this moment. Look, what did you touch? This is a taboo field, This is a height beyond the reach of ordinary people. Slay the demons, melt yourself, and create infinite good fortune. Look at that pure, strange sun. There is a trace of your supreme divinity in it. And in that strange Yin, there is a trace of your ultimate magic. There is some kind of human vibration in the scribbled words. It seems that horror games are also rocking Gu Yuan's achievement. Supreme divinity, ultimate magic. You don't need to delve into its connotation. Just from the words, you can feel a kind of powerfulness coming to your face. Obviously, this is definitely some kind of extremely terrifying calendar area. Interesting. The benefits that can be brought to me by defeating the strangeness of the demons and merging the power of the demons are far beyond my estimation. It actually allowed me to derive the highest divinity and ultimate magic. Although it's just a tiny bit, it's a very good start, and it will benefit me a lot in the future. Moreover, I don't need to bother to adjust and structure at all. These two forces naturally form a strange balance. The color of surprise in Gu Yuan's eyes quietly became more intense. The nature of this Tai Chi Yin Yang fish made him secretly startled. The weird Yang that contains the supreme divinity and the weird Yin that hides the ultimate demon nature belong to a state of mutual generation and mutual restraint. They are at a very delicate balance point at the moment, so they cannot interfere with each other, presenting a peaceful gesture of infinite movement. But what if I take the initiative to break this balance? Will it produce even more terrifying destructive forces? Gu Yuan murmured in his heart, quickly calculated the use strategy of this kind of ghost. After a brief hesitation, he just raised his hand lightly. According to previous experience, the chaotic ghosts that were originally spread out in a circular range were carefully compressed. Gradually, this piece of weirdness has become that long and narrow linear state. The weird Yang and the weird Yin are all stretched infinitely while maintaining that delicate balance. Cut! Gu Yuan let out a low cry. The palms are spread out, vertically forming a knife. From top to bottom, the wolf cuts down. That linear ghost also descended in an extremely terrifying posture. The strange Yang, which contains the supreme divinity, and the weird Yin, which hides the ultimate magic, lost their balance, and a terrifying collision broke out in an instant. It's like opening up the world. The foggy space ahead was actually forcibly cut open by this linear ghost. The endless space spontaneously crumbles and shatters under this terrifying pressure, evolving into an endless space turbulence. It seems that the stars are falling all over the sky, as if the 9-day Milky Way hangs upside down. The power of one blow. It's so scary. Gu Yuan was also slightly taken aback. Even before the experiment, he already had an estimate of the power of ghosts and creatures in his heart. But when it was really displayed, this terrifying effect was still far beyond his imagination. The destructive power of this moment is already comparable to the pressure of the 5th-level dark mythical ghost. Also, this is not the limit, because it's my first time to use it, so the technique is not proficient, and I haven't fully demonstrated the brilliant power of the collision of the strange Yang and the strange Yin. If you can continue to optimize and adjust in the future and find the best state, you should be able to show the power equivalent to the 20-fold dark mythical ghost. If the supreme divinity and ultimate demonic nature continue to grow, the power of ghosts and creatures will also continue to grow. Gu Yuan stared at the terrifying vision ahead. The eternal brain is running at high speed, quickly making analysis and judgments. In addition, because of the addition of this terrifying yin-yang fish composed of supreme divinity and ultimate demonic nature, the underlying logic of the entire chaotic ghost has been completely changed. I need to reorganize the combination of the 7 layers of dark mythical ghosts and creatures so that it can achieve an iterative upgrade, which is perfectly compatible with the supreme divinity and ultimate magic. The new version of the 7-fold dark mythical ghost is definitely stronger than the old version. That will be a combined effect where 1 + 1 is far greater than 2. However, this kind of revised research is a later story, and there is no rush now. Gu Yuan withdrew his mind. All the chaotic energy surged again and returned to the body. The terrifying supreme divinity and ultimate demonic nature quietly entered Gu Yuan's body, where the balance of yin and yang continued to reappear. Gu Yuan twisted his eyes, looking at the place where the demon had died strangely. In addition to this special gift, it helped Gu Yuan evolve the supreme divinity and ultimate magic. Xianmo Gue also left behind his own 9-star weird puzzle, and a phantom shadow of scriptures with a strange aura. Needless to say, Gu Yuan also fully understood. This phantom of the scriptures is definitely the last part of the ancient scriptures, represents the category of sixth sense intuition. Without hesitation, he gently raised his hand and took these two things into his hands. Afterwards, this strange space of demons began to become extremely dim, as if it was disappearing. Next moment, Yuan's consciousness returned to his body. He took a deep breath, opened the previously closed perception, then stood up and walked to the sandalwood box. As soon as he raised his hand, the phantom of the scriptures brought out from the inner demon space was directly sent into the box. The last incomplete part has also been perfectly completed. This volume of scriptures, at this moment, completely became solid. The yellowed pages of the book slowly unfolded. A strange fragrance of ink surged out, and the strange sound of chanting resounded, echoing endlessly in the Zhenwu Hall. Chapter 135, Part 2. Yuan raised his hand excitedly. Reach out to this ancient book. This time, his fingers did not pass through as before, but touched the entity. At the same time, the bloody screen of the horror game emerged again. The extremely distorted and scribbled words flashed and twisted on the screen. Congratulations, you have successfully obtained the ancient scriptures hidden in King Fengwen. This is an ancient scripture with supreme mystery. Have you heard the murmur of the deceitful god? Have you smelled the blood of the deceitful god? Read this ancient scripture carefully. Maybe you will benefit a lot. You have successfully completed the trial task of King Fengwen. Congratulations, you have officially become the viewer of Qingfeng Temple, and you have gained complete control over this heinous place. Accompanied by the flashing text on the screen, Yuan felt that, somewhere in the dark, there was a mysterious power that came from the air and projected on him. He has a very close connection with the mysterious Taoist temple under his feet. It's as if Qingfeng Guan is a part of his body, which can move with his mind and produce all kinds of strange changes. Here, he is the only supreme master. If he fights here, he can occupy a huge home court advantage and get an indescribably huge holding characteristic. Even if it is a powerful and weird 10-star high-ranking player, Yuan still has enough confidence to face it. Yuan's mind moved, and his consciousness was pinned on Qingfeng Temple. In the blink of an eye, he inspected every corner of Qingfeng Temple. This ancient and mysterious Taoist temple is extremely quiet and gloomy. Most of the weird creatures hidden here have been mercilessly slaughtered by myths and weirdness, turning them into the purest weird puzzles. Only a small number are still alive. Yuan is just a thought. Those weird living creatures didn't have any ability to resist at all, and were directly crushed by the surging strange air. This Qingfeng temple has been completely emptied. There is no longer any weird creature that can breathe. The power of King Fengwen Guanzhu is so overbearing. At the same time, all the weird jigsaw puzzles were forcibly assembled by Yuan and piled up in front of him into a hill. Bailey, a total of 131 9-star weird puzzles. This is an enormous resource, enough to make any creature tempted. Mo Yangjian's horror level has been raised to the top level of 9 stars and has entered a bottleneck period. Even if these 9-star puzzles are piled on him, it may not be able to send him to that new level. So this time, Yuan changed the allocation strategy. He evenly distributed all the weird jigsaw puzzles to the 4 mysterious monsters of evil impermanence, Nie Yan Luo, Black Wukong, and Fang Neza. The horror level of the 4 of them is only 9-star primary. With this resource, a huge improvement can be obtained. In this way, the cost performance of resource allocation can be maximized. As for the evil Golden Cicada, he has also reached the top 9 stars, and there is little hope of going further. But considering the weird jigsaw puzzle of the heart demon, it also belongs to the category of consciousness, and the degree of adaptation to him is quite high. Therefore, Yuan specially left that weird jigsaw puzzle to him. Yuan has already seen the horror of inner demons. If Yuan hadn't seized the opportunity and fought desperately, it would be absolutely impossible to stand here alive. If the evil Golden Cicada can use this to evolve some strange powers related to the demons, it will be a big profit. Be ***, praise the Lord. Thank you, Lord, for the gift. Several mythical statues spoke at the same time strangely. Then they began to absorb the huge and strange power hidden in these resources.
Thanks for watching. You can find the next videos in the playlist linked in the info card, directly on my channel, or right here on the screen. And as always, if you have any feedback, feel free to share it in the comments too.